Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 17th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting. I'll now call the meeting into order. First up is the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance this evening. We have Reverend Patrick Moore here from Provident Baptist Church. I hope. Maybe not. Miss Kitty, would you like to do the honors this evening?
Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for all the rich blessings that you have bestowed upon this county, the state, and our nation. We ask that you will continue to watch over us and make us make the right decisions tonight. These things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Kitty. All right, approval of the agenda. Do we have anything to add to the agenda or any changes this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add an amendment to the agenda under closed session. I'd like to add a discussion of personnel matters pursuant to GS 143-318.11A6.
Thank you. Any other changes this evening? Thank you. I'll open the floor for motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is public comment. We have a few people signed up tonight. If you haven't been to public comment before, we have a 3-light system up here. You get 3 minutes. Please state your name and address when you come up. Green means go, yellow means speed up, and red means stop. The first name is Judy O'Donnell. Jody, excuse me. Probably should put some glasses on. Good evening, sir.
Well, I know a few of y'all from just less formal situations. I was here to talk about, well, you know, I'm a swimming guy, also a soccer guy.
Before you get too far, I need your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry
please.
about
Thank
that. Not Judy, it's Jody. But Jody O'Donnell, 117 Shore Drive, Jarvisburg.
Thank you.
All right. Years ago, I was playing golf. I was probably like 14 years old. And this guy I was playing with, he was a lawyer. Don't hold it against me. But we were talking. He was trying to impart wisdom to me as a youth. And he's like, you know, when we got a case or whatever going on, we're all working on it, trying to make something happen. I always tell the people I'm working with, don't tell me what I can't do. Tell me what I can do. And I think when it comes to Currituck County, if we want to take our best step forward for the future, we have to have that mindset. What can we do as opposed to what can't we do? We should, you know, always ask ourselves, what's going on? What can we do? If something comes down the pipe, is this going to make Currituck County a better county? And if the answer is yes, then you got to start thinking, well, how can we make this happen? Instead of saying, well, I don't know if we can be, can't. Open mind, think about the possibilities, the solutions. You never know what can be on the horizon. Yeah, I did look on the Moyoc Facebook page, forgive me, but you know, I am a fan of having a pool situation that the high school team can practice at and people in the area can use and can draw other competitions from outside the area. And people are like, they don't need a pool, they need a school. And I think what we have to do is work all together. It's not pool versus school. I'm not saying stack the kids up on each other's shoulder, you know, because we do need schools. But I'm always thinking, what can we do to make our quality of life in Currituck, whether it's a pool, a new school, a place, for auditorium where they can have performances and plays and music that is not also used for lunch, things like that, to take it to the next level where we say, yeah, this is Currituck. You want to be here. It's not just because, oh, it's close to Virginia or it's close to Dare. You want this place to be the place where you're like, hey, we are here, you want to be here, you want to stay here, you want to raise your kids here, and after they've all grown, they might want to come back, but we know you definitely want to stay here. So that's the option. Whether we're talking pools, schools, anything, we want to have that ability to maintain our population, build upon it, and just do great things, because we can do that. We have the talent and ability here, and I have a lot of faith in everyone in this room to make the right things happen. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Dana Parker.
Good evening. I'm Dana Parker. I live at 106 Hammock View Court in Adlet. I'm a 22-year resident of Currituck County. First of all, I'd like to thank each of you for the service to our community. You are leading our county during a challenging time, a time of both unprecedented growth coupled with dysfunction at the state level of government. This leaves our local government with the responsibility of filling gaps, and I thank you for the work that you do. Many of us here are concerned about our children and the facilities available to our students both at school and within the community. I am president of the Currituck High School Athletic Booster Club. My role as president has led me here tonight. Last month, I posted for the need for a business sponsor for a broken high school scoreboard. That post created quite the Facebook outcry of the need for restrooms at soccer, working scoreboards for all spring sports, a new track because we cannot host one track meet in our county for middle or high school this year because it has been deemed unsafe, and a swimming pool for our swim team. A few commissioners reached out, and I appreciate that, and they requested that I first contact the school board to talk about capital outlay. As suggested, many of us addressed our concerns to the school board, and we plan to continue to advocate for improvements across the board in funding of public education here in the county. Currituck County is exploding. When our new families are joining our county, no one is telling them that our elementary school is crowded or that the education their children will receive will look different than the one they do in Virginia. They quickly learn that our state does not fund full-time TAs in kindergarten, nor do they fund weekly art and music classes. They quickly learn that when we can't find teachers, their children are put on online classes. They quickly learn that if their student is a theater student, they walk next door in the pouring rain to practice for a play. They quickly learn that if their child is on the swim team, they will practice in a 90-degree pool with 9 swimmers per lane. These are not problems that you created, nor problems that were created by the school board, but they are problems that you have been left to solve. And for our children, I challenge you to solve them. As we continue to grow, I encourage each of you to look at what we want for Currituck County. I am not interested in how we compare to the rest of northeastern North Carolina. I had some people reach out to tell me how much more we fund. We are Currituck, and we are exceptional. I have no interest in how we could compare to the counties around us. Please continue to work with our school board to create a long-term plan for what we need. Please continue to work to expand services and appropriate facilities that will improve the quality of life in Currituck County. Please come up with a solution for our swimmers and our children. I and many others would like the chance to meet with you personally and share our concerns. I hope that you will grant us that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jason Sarnowski.
I'm Jason Sarnowski, 164 St. Andrew Road, Moyock. I'm going to read you a post from the swim team coach. The long story. When I took over the swim team 11 years ago, I was driving the bus to Elizabeth City 4 days a week for practice. We practiced at the Coast Guard base 2 days a week and 2 days at the YMCA. We shared the lanes with J.A. Holmes because both teams were fairly small. They said, you'll only have to do that for 2 years. Then we'll have a pool in Currituck. 2 years later came the bathtub. 2 years later, came to bathtub, and it was initially built in the aquatic center, but we told we could not practice there because it was not a swimming pool. It was a therapy pool. The Coast Guard then built a new facility that does not allow civilian usage. So we actually went a year without a pool and had to practice 1 day a week to share with Edenton at the YMCA in Elizabeth City. The next year I drove to Corolla Light for 2 days a week. Those were some long nights. Eventually, when I agreed to take over the YMCA team, I began practicing my high schools there as well. But enough is enough. Right? We shouldn't have to deal with those conditions. We shouldn't have to drive 2 counties over to support a swim team. We need to fund a pool. Is it through the school system? They're going to ask you for it, hopefully, because we went to the school board and asked them to. But we can build a facility that many would like to come to. We could use funds that we may not think that we can use right now if we just sell it as a tourism thing. So I think we should take the time, look at it, and treat it as we should, as an investment to our community, to our people, to our school system, to our students, and to our teachers who are severely underpaid for what they do, and stop treating them like it's a spouse job because they can't even afford to buy a house in our own community with the income that they make. So I leave you with that. Please build a pool. It is needed. We can use it to grow as a community and an investment in our future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Andrew Sarnowski.
Andrew Sarnowski, 164 St. Andrews Road. I am a swimmer from Currituck High School. I've been swimming since last season, and I went to NCACC Eastern Regionals this year. Throughout the season, we had 3 practices a week in the Currituck YMCA pool and 1 in the Elizabeth City pool per week. Now, why does this matter? This is important because our swim team is 26 to 27 members, strong and growing, and the size of the Currituck pool is significantly limiting us. Imagine this, 8 to 9 people per lane in a 17-yard pool. That's what everyday swim practice looks like. We are limited by the size of the pool and space to practice. The lanes are undersized and the pool is 90 degrees because it is considered a therapy pool. When I went to regionals, it really hit me that our practice facilities put us at a severe disadvantage. We were swimming against schools with proper-sized pools and USA teams in their area. They were able to train in the same pool they would compete in and reach their full potential as high school athletes. I think if we were to have an aquatic facility with the regulation-sized pool, we would be able to reach our full potential and go further to develop our edge as student athletes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't have anyone else signed up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak that didn't sign up for public comment this evening? Come on up, sir. Please do.
David Greenwell, 156 Mariners Way. Sorry I didn't get signed up, get here early enough. It snuck up on me.
All right.
I will say that I was a swimmer when I was in high school, and also in the Navy. We have to do the physical fitness test every year, and I went for one of my tests and did practice at this pool, and it severely hampered me when I got back into a regular sized pool. Almost didn't pass that one that year. So I say that the pool and the training that the kids get and the development that they get as athletes is definitely worth looking into somehow, giving them a proper size pool and temperature. 90 degrees is not, typically those pools are 70 degrees when they're swimming in competition. It makes a big difference.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So, as well as in the band, I was also on the swim team. So I get the challenges that you all are facing. One of the things that I've been working with is there is a company that's looking to locate. In fact, we should get something more concrete in the next month or so. And they're going to have a maritime safety training center. The key point there being maritime. So their first phase is dedicated to
offshore safety training and some other kind of training involving entities that have 3 letters, if you all get my drift. Phase 2, I've already been in discussions with them about potentially having an Olympic-sized swimming pool. They're very interested in sewing into the community. One of the things that I've been in discussions with them is, you know, hey, maybe we can make it so that our swim team would have a place to practice. From a county perspective, if we can get corporate buy-in to help us with that, that's the way to go, because that's full-time support of the facility, and it provides an asset for the county to use. So it's not gone. You know, I know we've had discussions about a swimming pool in the county for years, and we're hopefully a solution's within sight. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Thank you for your comments, everyone, for coming out this evening. Next item on the agenda is Commissioner's Report, and I'll start off this week. Last week, myself and Commissioner Jarvis attended a work session and the regular meeting for the school board, so we heard most of you speak there as well. At least I did, and Commissioner Jarvis. She is not here this evening. She's out on vacation with her family, so hope she's having a good time and not thinking about us here. We were also there when the high school decided to go with accreditation, and it's a big deal for us in this county. The Board of Commissioners fully got behind that. Will Craddock, a school board member, brought that up. He'd been trying to get it done for years prior to his election to the board, and now has achieved that. He came around and talked to every commissioner individually or called us on the phone to garner support for that and work through the school board for that. It's a big win for us, for not only our students, but from an economic development standpoint for this county. So I just want to say thank you to the school board for taking that on. It'll probably take them a few years to actually accomplish that goal. It is a long and arduous process, but it'll only set us to a little bit higher standard for our students here. Myself and the County Manager, Ben Steichleather, went to a North Carolina Association of County Commissioners district meeting, and we heard some interesting stuff from them, most of which was how some of the surrounding counties are solving their firefighter problem. So I'm sure you two gentlemen are well aware getting volunteer firefighters is a problem. People aren't doing that, not only for firefighting, but just general stuff across the board. People don't volunteer like they used to. So they created a program through the high school and got businesses involved, got other fire stations involved, had fire, this was Pasquotank County, I believe, or Perquimans, and have grown an amazing program through that effort. And so much so that each student that enters into it gets their own complete set of gear, mask, tank, everything. And it starts their sophomore year and goes all the way through their high school year. The first class of graduates had 6 kids in it. 5 of those people went on to either go into fire departments or go into some sort of public service, civil service, and beyond. I think they said this year they had 26 applicants. And they're only growing. So they're helping to solve their problem, but not only for themselves, but regionally, because a lot of those kids left that area and went somewhere else and served in other communities. So it was just really interesting to see how they're tackling that problem. And as we talk about Currituck County and the things we're doing here with some of our training and educational centers, it may be something we could get to working with the school board down the road to help get volunteers back into our fire departments here, which everybody would agree would be a wonderful thing, because we don't want to have paid fire and EMS. It is very expensive and much better served by volunteers. I think that's all I have for this evening. Commissioner Payment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to touch base real quickly on the comments I heard tonight about the swim team, and I would agree with Mr. O'Donnell's statement earlier that if we can, you got to be open-minded to try to find ways to get things accomplished. And I think Commissioner Beaumont was correct that the best way we can look at this without asking citizens and taxpayers to dig deeper into pockets is to try to get corporate sponsorship to work with something. Nothing's going to be quick and easy, but discussions can be had on that. You know, I coached in the school system. I was in the Navy, so I know the importance of swimming, and on the fire department, if you want to be in a boat team, you had to swim that pool at the Y 6 laps straight without stopping. And let me tell you, I thought I was in shape. I made it, but I'm going to tell you what, that warm water put a toll on you. So I did hear you tonight. I appreciate y'all coming out. And like I said, I think discussions about other ways to finance it other than citizens, I think is worth exploring. Other than that, again, with the chairman's comments about the fire departments, again, if you can volunteer, help. I know we got programs in the school, but we've got to increase the volume in all the departments so they can use all your help out there. Anything you can do to support your fire departments, because they are volunteers, they would appreciate it. That's all I really have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Etheridge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Monday, Amber Harris, who's the Director of Government Relations for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, interviewed Patrick Gannon, who is the Public Information Officer of the State Board of Elections, and myself, since I'm the former Director of Elections of Currituck County. And we discussed elections throughout the state, and mostly we discussed the security of elections. I think during this time of the year, you hear a lot about security. We talked about what happens with the ballots before, during, and after they're cast. It was my very first podcast. I'd never done one before, and I think it turned out really great. There's a lot of information, and you can see all this information on the county's website. And I also have it posted on my Facebook page. And they also asked me if I like Western or Eastern barbecue the best. And y'all know I had to say Eastern. You can listen to it, like I say, it's on the Currituck County website. And speaking of elections, one-stop voting has already started. It runs from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. weekdays. And we'll also have voting for the next 2 Saturdays from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 p.m. And there will be one Sunday where there'll be one-stop voting going on. That'll be on this coming Sunday, the 23rd, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And also on Thursday, I attended the Pink Ribbon Resource Center ribbon cutting in Moyock. This is a very much needed resource here in the county. If anybody's ever had breast cancer, it's a great place to go and get information and other resources. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Beaumont?
Our retreat was, since the last meeting, the meetings begin to blur over time. And I wanted to make everybody aware of one thing that I would suggest is very significant, and that's, we've got stormwater issues and challenges throughout the county, Moyock being perhaps one of the most significantly impacted, and we are legitimately taking, and Eric Weatherly's hiding in the back, some very serious looks at some of the things that are impacting our flooding in Moyock especially. And we're really looking into some new ways of looking at it, not just a stock storm, but what happens with the successive storms that we have, and that's going to kind of lead me into part of the challenges with an economy that is growing, with an economy that's improving, and I'm going to use Terrell County as an example, and we have problems, right? But they're not bad problems to have. And when you look around our region and around our state, our challenges are people want to come and live here, right? This is a place they want to move to. They want to live here. They want their kids to grow up here. That's a good problem to have. It's a far worse problem when everybody's leaving, all of the employers are leaving, and then you got a county that's dying. And, I had an opportunity to travel throughout this region, and there are many counties in this congressional district, if you will, that they're in a downward spiral without any real glimmer of hope in the future of it improving. So, again, growth is a good thing. Managing the growth is the challenge that we all take extremely seriously and will continue to take seriously. And just wondering, you know, we may have some issues, but they're not bad issues to have, all things considering. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McCord.
I have a couple things. I also attended the retreat, and like Commissioner Beaumont said, I'd like to reiterate, you know, we discussed a lot of issues in the county, stormwater, growth. Saturday was a long day, but we did get some stuff accomplished, and all that stuff is open. It was right in here. We just kind of moved some tables around. It's open to the public, and I know we're starting to put more stuff out there on the county website. Check the county website out, you know, more, as well as the county Facebook page. I know they're doing a lot better job on putting out when we have stuff. Commissioner Beaumont, I just want to reiterate, you know, I support school sports. I mean, I had 3. I got 1 left still playing. Donated plenty of times, myself and my time, mowing fields and just donating them for free. So that's just, I get that phone call like the morning of, and they got a game that afternoon. Can you cut the grass? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'll be right there. But I mean, we always, you know, I don't mind helping. And then the last thing that I want to add, this is just kind of a condolences. Kim Old, who lives in the county, has lived here a lifetime resident. His wife passed away yesterday afternoon. Donates to the schools, donates to the community, donates to a church. I mean, he's just a good guy. And like I said, I just wanted to offer condolences to his family and his sons. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm like the other commissioners, I'm glad to see the crowd out here tonight and the involvement in the community. But don't let yourself just be one issue, people who are involved in the community. Get involved in the total community of Currituck. Let us know what it is you're thinking. We're only as good as the information that's supplied to us. That's why we need your input on what affects each and every one of us here in Currituck County. Saturday night I had the opportunity to attend a reception for Congressman Dr. Greg Murphy, our 3rd District U.S. Congressman. Also at that meeting was Representative Bobby Hanning and Senator Bob Steinberg. Had a chance to talk to them a little bit. And I can tell you that all 3 of them are very interested in what we're doing here in Currituck County. Bobby especially, since he's a native of Currituck or a resident of Currituck. But they're here to help us, and they encourage citizens to reach out to them also and let them know your concerns. So by no means let that avenue go unused. So just get involved in our community and take an interest in it, not just for one issue, but for all issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And following on that, we have a lot of advisory boards in the county. We're always looking for new applicants for that and a new pool of people. So if you have an interest in serving this county and in being involved, there's a rec advisory board, there's animal, there's a whole number of them, and those advisory boards are on our county website. You have to fill out a very simple statement of interest, and you can check off which ones you're interested in. And as people come up, as openings open up, we go through those and pull the name out of the hat and put people on advisory boards. So there's another good way to get involved kind of on the inside, if you will, and talk to the commissioners and other government or county employees that are involved in that. And one thing I forgot to mention is for the board, I won't be at our next meeting. I'll be down in Daytona. I missed Trump by a few weeks, but I'll be down there, so I'll be thinking of you guys as I'm down there, and hopefully it's nice and warm and be snowing back here. All right. All right. Thank you. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick things. Just for the board to know and for the general public to know, we've started budget season in earnest. Department budgets were due last Friday, so myself and finance director will start going through those budgets and making cuts where appropriate to get it down within the amount that we bring in through our various revenues, whether it's taxes or permits or fees, that kind of thing. The other thing I wanted to address is that Commissioner Owen Etheridge was talking, or Commissioner McCord, excuse me, was talking about that we're getting more active on social media. We're going to start to put some more information out specifically around our water utility. There have been a lot of questions recently about the water utility, how it works. If I have a leak, how do I know that? What do I do if I have a leak? So you can expect to see some more information come out around that, as well as some information at the water department. So if folks come in concerned about a high water bill, there's a decision tree that they can look at and try to determine, is it a leak on their side? Is it a meter issue? If it is, what can be done? And just so that you all know and the general public knows, we do have a program in place where every so often, if you do have a leak, if you get a plumber to fix that leak and you bring that receipt into the water department, we will prorate based on your average usage when you didn't have a leak your water bill. So to try to help folks out. So just wanted to put that out there for the general public to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, administrative reports. Item A, Trillium Annual Report from Bland Baker, the Northern Regional Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to come, and commissioners to come and present for you all. I do have a...
Yeah, she got you.
Okay. And I wanted to just take a minute to thank you all for Commissioner Jarvis's appointment to my advisory board. She has been extremely supportive of Trillium and what we try to do in communities, and she's been so supportive of Currituck County and always an advocate for you all and for this county. So I really appreciate her appointment. And also Dr. Barbara Courtney, she's your other appointee as well, and she's been equally as involved and active. She had a little damage during the storm, but she has been very faithful in her service to my advisory board, and I just wanted to thank you all for that. So, I just wanted, I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I just wanted to kind of give you an update about what's going on with Trillium since the last time I was here. I was here a year ago, and I was talking about Medicaid transformation. And it's a year since and I'm going to still talk about Medicaid transformation. So, and we'll see if it ever happens or not. But anyway, just to review a little bit, we're still 26 counties, the eastern part of North Carolina, from the Virginia border to South Carolina line. We actually, last year, we served 57,000 individuals with mental health needs. The services, the cost of those services were somewhere around $475 million for those services for those 57,000 people. We manage a network of 500 providers currently. So I wanted to show you this, and of course I take this slide everywhere I go. But so you see, the northern region has a little over 200,000 in the population. It has 10 counties, which is more counties than the other two regions. But as you go to the central region, they're double the population of what we have in the northern region. And if you go to the southern, they're almost 800,000 now. So that's one of the struggles that we all face, because we all have rural counties, but the northern region is so rural, and it takes extra effort, it takes extra thinking to try to figure out how to get services into some of our counties. Sometimes we have to be creative, using other partners in our communities, like the health department, for example. So it is a challenge. So the Medicaid transformation, if you remember last year, transformation to Medicaid is the biggest transformation in 40 years. It's been the same for 40 years. And so there are two plans under Medicaid transformation: the standard plan, tailored plan. Standard plan covers individuals with mild to moderate mental health services, as well as pharmacy benefits and physical benefits. So the state ran an RFP. They awarded that RFP to 5 commercial plans. This is the first time they've ever managed Medicaid dollars before. This is kind of something new for them in terms of Medicaid. So it was AmeriHealth, Blue Cross, United, WellCare, and Carolina Complete Health. So those are the 5 insurance companies that have been awarded the standard plan. They've been working hard to implement the standard plan, or at least up until a point. I'll get to that in a minute. So for the tailored plan, they've not been awarded. The RFP has not been posted yet. Those are for the MCOs to apply. That's Trillium, and all the 6 other MCOs across the state will be allowed to and be expected to submit an application for the tailored plan. So the tailored plan is, as I said, different from the standard plan in that we will be providing the services and managing the services for those individuals who are more moderate to severe behavioral health characteristics and behaviors, plus the pharmacy benefits and the medical or the physical health as well. That's something new for the MCOs. We've never had to manage the physical health before, which is causing us to have to do a lot of research and a lot of planning what we're going to look like when all this is said and done. So we're expecting the applications for the tailored plan to come out sometime. This is late winter. I haven't had an opportunity to update my slide yet. We heard today that it's going to be probably more in the spring, maybe closer to April 1 before this thing is posted. So we're working hard to try to put us in a position to where we'll be successful when we make that bid. So initially for the standard plan, it was in 2 phases. Phase 1 was a lot of the other counties. We were all in phase 2 except for one county, which is Nash County. But because there was no budget, as you well know, we still don't have a budget, the division had to indefinitely postpone the implementation of the standard plan. So all these standard plans, hiring all these individuals that were bringing, opening offices in North Carolina because they're statewide, then all of a sudden it's on hold. So the rates haven't been set yet. I think a lot of those commercial plans have not gotten contracts with the physical health care providers or the behavioral health care providers either. They're in negotiations, but they've been encouraged to continue, but they're not getting any money to do that. So when you don't have a budget, it makes a big difference. And the reason that the secretary had to postpone the implementation of the standard plan, there's a very large sum of money in that budget, a large sum of money in the budget that's specifically dedicated to the implementation of this Medicaid transformation. And what that means is a lot of that money was going to set rates for the insurance companies, and they can't get their hands on the money because the budget's not been approved. And General Assembly doesn't come back into session until April the 28th. So I don't know if anything's going to happen between April and July 1. So what does that mean for our members and our communities? You know, when they were looking at the standard plan implementation, our members got letters saying you have to sign up for a plan. If you don't sign up for a plan, the time frame, then we're going to put you in a plan. And there's a lot of confusion around that. And now they've gotten letters saying, oh, that's been called off, don't do anything. We'll let you know when to start again. So you can imagine what our members in our communities who have received those letters, they just don't really know what to do. So it's been very confusing for them. But so in terms of the impact, everything is still as it was. Everybody continues to get their services, behavioral health services from Trillium until further notice, and everything stays the same. Medicaid continues to pay as it has been. So we'll just have to see what happens between now and July 1, if anything. Some of the things that we have done to kind of prepare for us being a tailored plan is we actually hired a transition team to kind of take a look at all the aspects of what we are anticipating the RFP is going to look like and trying to compose our answers to the questions that we anticipate they're going to have to show how we are going to implement that tailored plan and how we're going to be able to manage the pharmacy benefits and manage the physical health. The other thing that we're in the process of doing, we have to have a standard plan partner, and we're in negotiations with those standard plans now to kind of figure out who we want to align with when this thing goes live. So we're working on that as well. One of the other things that we've done that I think has been a very positive note is we've hired a head of DSS director as a liaison between the DSSs and Trillium. And I will say that at our last meeting, Commissioner Jarvis was talking about how favorable that had been with Ms. Hurd with DSS in Currituck County, that he had made a lot of difference already in their conversation and the way he has been able to get them to the right people when they have questions, those kinds of things. So, and we also have someone that's going to be the same type of individual for the Department of Juvenile Justice as well. So, let's see. Just some of the project updates that we've done and we're working on. I do want to mention the naloxone. I'm not going to mention them all, but I'm going to mention the naloxone kits. For the last couple of years, we've been trying to get kits and deliver them to all of our counties. We did get some to Currituck, and we included county managers this time and let them help us make the decision about who would get those kits. I'm hoping we'll get another little pot of money in the spring. We can give some more. So I hope that will work out. We are still working with putting up Oxford houses across our 26 counties, and just because a house is in a certain county doesn't mean only those individuals from that county get to live in that house. It's across our 26 counties, but we had one in Elizabeth City, which I think is the closest to Currituck, and they had to move that one, so they're trying to revamp that again to get that going. But we are contracting to have several of those houses across our 26 counties. One of the other things that we do, we had a project, Eat the Rainbow, which this is part of the tailored plan, is looking at social determinants of health that affect our mental health services. So if you don't know where you're going to live, if you don't know if you have enough food, if you don't have transportation, all those kinds of things affect our mental health. So when you can't satisfy those things, you can't think about getting treatment for your drug addiction. You can't think about trying to get to your psychiatrist with your medication. You can't think about those things because you've got to worry about how you're going to take care of your family. So one of the things in terms of nutrition that we did this past year, we did some healthy eating classes in our counties, especially for those counties that had types of day programs. It was an Eat the Rainbow, so every month it was a different color. So if it was green, they got apples, they got cucumbers, and then they got recipes on how to eat those, prepare them, healthy. So, and that was a big success across our counties. One of the other things I really wanted to mention was our Safe Schools and Healthy Kids. This is a grant we got from the division around ways that we could help support the school systems in promoting safer schools, giving teachers resources, giving parents resources, giving kids resources. So we actually developed a website, and I'll say it was slow to kind of get off the ground, but I think the momentum has hit, and a lot of the schools are really taking more of an interest. It's a website that's free, and there's a section for parents. There are short trainings that teachers can take, that parents can review, that kids can review, with tip sheets that go along with those videos. And a lot of our schools are beginning to give credit to the teachers if they log on and go and review some of those videos. So there's one on bullying, there's one on teen suicide, there's one on how to recognize if your student is having mental health issues, what does that look like? So there's, I don't know, there's 8 or 9 or 10 different trainings that can be accessed, and our schools are really beginning to take that on, and we've had some schools where the kids are really enjoying that. So I did want to mention that.
Mr. Baker, how do they find that? Is it on your website, or is there a separate website?
Well, the link is on our website.
The link is on your website. Okay.
Yeah. And we still provide CIT classes for EMS. We've opened them up to EMS and law enforcement as well, crisis intervention training. Mental health first aid for schools, help schools manage those kids that may have some behavioral issues and how to recognize when they're going through some things. So specifically, let me just say a couple more things about Currituck. I think that the school-based therapy program in Currituck County Schools has done well. They have 2 providers that are in the school system at this point, and I think it's been successful. But we still recognize that the school needs some extra support in some of their kids that are experiencing some specific behaviors and more intense behaviors. So we actually did an RFP for day treatment, which requires the day treatment provider to have a partnership with the school system, because the school system is the one who refers those kids to the day treatment program. And couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we did have someone who submitted an application for Currituck County Schools, which I thought was great. And they actually have done a presentation to school system, and it was very favorable. So I'm hoping that we'll continue to move forward, and then we'll be able to help support the school system as well. Before I talk just about this slide, I always forget to do this. Tracy, this is Tracy Webster. She's the most important person, not me, that's for sure. Tracy is the system of care coordinator for the counties in this area, but she's specifically assigned to Currituck County. I kind of want you to just briefly tell these folks kind of what you're involved in and what types of boards you sit on, or what you do in the community, if you would do that.
Plan always puts me on the spot. I wasn't prepared. But in terms of Currituck County, one of the primary roles that I do here in Currituck, facilitating the Currituck County Child Community Collaborative. And basically what that is, it's a child servant committee with various stakeholders to include DSS, the school system, health department. We want parents and youth at the table, but that sometimes becomes a barrier. But basically what this committee does is we get together and we talk about the gaps and needs of the county as it relates to mental health or substance abuse. We meet every other month at the Cooperative Extension Building early in the morning at 9, and we're currently recruiting. It is a public meeting, so if you're interested in coming and talking about the barriers or gaps and needs of the county, that's the place to go. Mr. Baker also mentioned the day treatment program that we submitted in RFP. That was one of the ways that we talked about the barriers in Currituck County. It came through the collaborative, and we were able to move forward with talking about that was a concern. And Ms. Parker, who spoke recently, she's the Booster Club president, but she also sits on our collaborative meeting as well. So we sit together and we talk about, different gaps and needs and how we're gonna resolve it or whatnot. Some additional meetings that I also attend would be the Juvenile Crime Prevention Committee, JCPC. Ms. Etheridge, she sits there on our committee as well. Now, Selena's on. Okay, it was primarily, as well as a few other mandated committees like the Community Protection Team that's overseen by the Department of Social Services, as well as the Child Fatality Team. So those are some of the meetings that I participate in Currituck County. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. And so just the last slide, talk a little bit about what we did in Currituck last year. So We served a total of 757 people in Currituck County last year. 594 of those individuals had struggles with mental health. 149 of those individuals had some substance abuse issues, and then 96 of those individuals had intellectual and developmental disabilities. So those services they were roughly about $6 million is what those services cost. And if you notice, they don't add up because sometimes someone can be served in more than one category, more than one disability. So, and that's all I have. I kind of flew through that. Is there any questions?
Thing, I don't know if y'all, now with the mobile crisis unit with Keith Ham and those guys.
Yes.
Are y'all, I know y'all are affiliated with them, but if that's something that we can, because they assist a lot. The county, it's a free service, and we deal with them. I'm a sergeant at the Sheriff's Department. We deal with them on a regular basis. So
Absolutely.
They do a really, really good job.
They actually are what we built our crisis services array around is the mobile crisis team that's integrated. They do a fabulous job.
They do.
Oh yeah, and they will continue to do that.
Thank you. Anything further?
I'd like to thank you for the report, and I think a lot of people don't realize when a state budget is not passed, how it trickles down to the counties, and with the Medicare transformation being put on hold, people were at a step thinking it was going to happen, and all of a sudden it didn't. So we appreciate what you're doing and trying to keep people informed.
Well, we actually put some people in our Neighborhood Connections Department in Currituck County to do member engagement sessions. I think some of them, I don't remember if they were in the Health Department or the DSS. I think they may have been in DSS.
They were in DSS. I serve on the DSS board.
Okay. I knew that they went a couple of times a month or once a week or a couple of times a month, whatever, to kind of be sure that they were educating those members about Trillium, what services were available, and how to access those services. So it is a challenge. So.
Can I ask one quick question? What did IDD stand for? The one?
Our intellectual and developmental disabilities.
All right, thank you.
All right. Good. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work. All right. Next up is the Albemarle Regional Health Services report from Battle Betts, who's the director.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Battle Betts, the health director for Albemarle Regional Health Services. I have several staff with me. I want to introduce Sandy Jennings. Oh, good deal.
They're coming.
They're coming right here. Sandy Jennings, our district clinical nursing supervisor. Nicole Hines is our Currituck County Health Department nursing supervisor. We have Amy Underhill, the director of health education and health promotion programs.
The boss is coming in.
Information officer. Thank you. That's better. And Ashley Stoop, our Director of Policy, Planning, and Preparedness. So I like to take every opportunity I can to brag on these folks. They are definitely special. We have several more staff that are involved with our current efforts surrounding the coronavirus, but I wanted you to meet the people that are at the forefront, really, in their daily work and their efforts. And I also want to thank you for having us tonight. We're proud to be your local public health department. We take pride in our work. And also, before I pass the baton here, I want to give special thanks to Commissioner Mike Payment. He is very active and engaged on our board, and we appreciate his service. We really do. But these folks are the experts. I'm going to turn things over to them, and then we'll have an opportunity for some questions. Amy Underhill is going to give you a brief overview of our programs and services, and then we'll move on into more discussion on the communicable disease prevention and control efforts. As more specifically, the COVID-19 situation that we've all been hearing so much about here lately in the press. So, Amy?
I don't know what button I'm supposed to mash to get my PowerPoint. I could do that.
No. Did you guys submit something to us for?
We did.
Oops.
That's okay. We can ad lib. That's
All right.
Hey, we
Perfect.
roll with the punches.
Right.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to come here and share some information. We always look forward to being able to share with our communities about what public health is and what we do, because I think a lot of times there can be some misconceptions about some of the programs and things that we offer. And so, again, we love the opportunity to come out and speak throughout the community. ARHS serves 8 counties here in the Northeast region, and our vision is creating healthy communities by empowering people to live healthy lives. And we're really dedicated to disease prevention, disease promotion, trying to educate the community about our health services, and just creating a healthy environment so we can prevent morbidity and mortality and disability through our education, through our advocacy, and through our services to our region. We're one of 85 local health departments across the state. We are the largest district health department within North Carolina, serving the 8 counties. And this is always fun when we go out and we're talking about our 8 counties, that we try to see how we can say all of our counties in one breath. So we serve Pasquotank, Perquimans, Chowan, Camden, Currituck, Burt T, Gates, and Hertford counties. So I hope I got all of them. But we have over 20 services that we provide at across 29 different sites within the region, serving a total of 159,000 individuals across our 8 counties. We do have a physical location to provide public health services in each one of those counties that I just mentioned. And if you see our PowerPoint, you'll be able to see pictures of each one of our sites. But we do provide a lot of core public health services, but we also provide a lot of other services that some of our community members are not aware of. We do our general administration through our Pasquotank Health Department, and so that includes our billing and all of our financial services, all our human resources, and all our IT services there at that location. We also have the Intercounty Public Transportation Authority, so when you see the buses driving around in your community, you know that that is part of ARHS with ICPTA. We also provide solid waste management through the Albemarle Regional Solid Waste Management Authority, and we also have the Perquimans, Chowan, and Gates landfill and convenience sites. We provide environmental health services, including food and lodging, wells, septic tanks, vector control, lead poisoning, and management entity. I'm part of the health education team, and so we're responsible for our community health assessment. Every 3 years, all of our community outreach and education, grants management, public information, as well as clinical education with our patients. And going into our clinical services, we have always prided ourselves in our clinical services that we provide across the 8 counties, including primary care for pediatrics. And we've recently expanded our primary care to actually serve adults, so we're really excited about that new programming across the region. We provide adult health and women's health services, WIC, which is the Women, Infant, and Children Program, adult health, case management, nutrition services, diabetes care management. One of our newer services, which is our behavioral health program that we have, immunizations, tuberculosis control, communicable disease, and preparedness and response. And I'm going to turn it over to my coworkers to give you a little bit more about our communicable disease and our preparedness program.
My name is Nicole Hines. So I am the Currituck County Nursing Supervisor. So if you come to Currituck Health Department right up the street, you'll see me most of the time. I'm also the communicable disease nurse in Currituck County. So when it comes to communicable diseases, I'm the one who investigates all the communicable diseases. We haven't finished the 2019 data, but for 2018, investigated 223 reportable communicable diseases just in Currituck County alone. So this is something that we investigate a lot in Currituck County. This is something that we have to investigate. According to North Carolina general statutes, there are a list of reportable conditions that physicians have to report to the health department anytime a patient is diagnosed with a reportable condition within the county that they live in. So they report it to the health department, and then the communicable disease nurse within that county, in Currituck County, that would be me, goes and investigates that case and makes sure that that is a reportable condition and reports that to the health director. And many cases that are reported as possible communicable disease cases turn out not to be reportable cases at all. I do a lot of education with patients and also with providers too, veterinarians as well. I investigate animal bite reports. I talk to all the animal control officers almost daily about animal bite reports. We do a lot of outbreak investigations at schools, at long-term care facilities, hospitals, daycare centers. I talk to the principals, all the school nurses at the schools. We also investigate non-reportable diseases like norovirus, anything that can take down mass populations of people at a time is something that can be reported to the health department as well. So anything that is reportable to the health department, like norovirus that can take down a large group of people at one time, can also be reported to the health department. And then for public health and preparedness and response, that's hazards that can be reported to the health department. Anything that would take local coordination, like with emergency management, we are the people who would man the shelter during hurricane evacuations. We coordinate with emergency management during natural disasters, bioterrorism, any suspicious substance or emerging pathogens like the coronavirus, and then during outbreaks and epidemics and pandemics. We coordinate with state and federal partners. We have epidemiologists on call 24/7 that we can call. We have the state lab, and then we have regional nurse consultants, and we coordinate with all of our local resources and providers. And then I'm going to turn it over to my associate Sandy to talk more specifically about the coronavirus.
All right, so what's in the news right now is the coronavirus. I'm Sandy Jennings. I'm based in Pasquotank, but Currituck is one of my counties that I cover. So the novel coronavirus has a couple of different names that are all in the news right now. It could be the 2019 NCOV, COVID-19. There's a couple different terms that are being thrown around. So it's a respiratory illness outbreak that initiated in Wuhan, China. The WHO is the World Health Organization, announced a public health emergency of international concern on January the 30th, and then the United States Department of Health and Human Services declared a public health emergency on January 31st. So reported illnesses have ranged from people having very little symptoms to people dying, and symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. So one of the big things to keep in mind with coronavirus is a very generic term. Coronaviruses have been around. There's about 7 that we know about anyway, but this one's just a new one, so we don't know that much about it. We initially thought that it was when it was first detected, they thought it was animal to human contact, and of course now we know there have been human to human contact as well. So it's still unclear how easily or how sustainably this virus is spreading between people, but we do know it's spreading. So of course always the latest situation summary updates are always on the cdc.gov website. Let's see, there's travel notices in effect. So CDC is currently recommending that travelers avoid all non-essential travel to China. There's also, I'm going to skip just a second. If someone has been to China, there's also different tiers of what to do depending on where they came from. So if someone was in the specific Hubei province in the last 14 days, if they have fever, cough, or trouble breathing, then when they come into one of the 11 airports in the United States, they're quarantined. They cannot complete their travel itinerary. There's medical facilities that those people are going to. And for those updates, they're kept online at CDC. I said that earlier, but it says specifically how many people have tested negative, how many people have tested positive, how many people are currently under investigation. So PUI is a person under investigation, if you see that anywhere on the news. For travelers who have traveled from other parts of China in the last 14 days, if they have fever, cough, or trouble breathing, then CDC staff at the airport will evaluate the patient for illness. They will be taken to a medical facility for further evaluation and care, and the same thing, they may not be able to complete their travel itinerary. If they don't have symptoms, then they're allowed to reach their final destination, and then they're asked to monitor their health for a period of 14 days after they leave China. They also receive a health information card that talks about the symptoms to look for and what to do if they develop symptoms. And they also will probably have to be told to call the local health department. So the next step is we get notified, and then there's monitoring that we have to do. It could be checking in 3 times a day, and it's changing every day. So the main thing that I think we want the public to know is we are getting updates all day, every day. There's forms, there's algorithms, there's consultants that we can call if we have questions. If someone's traveling in, usually someone's called us already if they know that they're coming in, and so we can try to figure it out and go ahead and start working on it. There's 2 different kinds of surveillance in public health. There's active surveillance and passive surveillance. Active would mean I have a positive lab test. Now what do I do with it? Passive surveillance could be like if I know something might be happening and then I have to go dig deeper. And so that's kind of where we are. We're digging deeper, and we have tons of resources at our fingertips to utilize. But keep in mind, this is a respiratory virus. So if someone is sick, they need to stay home. If they're running fever, they need to stay home, just like with flu. Wash your hands, and don't go to Walmart if you're running a fever. That's the main thing. Does anybody have any questions?
Bless you.
Yeah, that was great.
I mean, as far as localized or state level, or I don't know if someone wants to. Is there any updates, concerns, or with the what do we expect in this general area with this?
The most recent numbers that we've seen, there are just over 70,000 cases worldwide, just over 1,700 deaths. So it's about a 2.5% to 3% mortality rate with the current situation. There are 15 known cases on U.S. soil. That number is going to, more than likely, you'll hear that jump to 29 in the news in the next day or so, and that's solely because some of the folks that were on one of those cruise ships, that they were sent to 2 Air Force bases this morning, and so the number will go from 15 to 29 because those will be in the official U.S. count in the next day or so. But really, just your typical hand washing, stay home if you're sick. That type of thing. It's just good advice. The coronavirus has been around for a while in many different forms, like the SARS. And SARS several years ago. For some of you that may have heard about that, so it's a new curveball that the bacteria world is throwing at us, unfortunately, but. We've got great partners at the federal level. I mean, as folks are coming in, the first stages, they were sending folks to 5 different airports. They were rerouting all the flights, and now they're rerouting up to 11 now airports. So they've got a much more robust system for screening, and folks are being held for that 14-day period of time just to make sure they're not exhibiting any forms of the virus.
So the current number of people that are out there, is that kind of a low number for this type of outbreak? I mean, you guys, it seemed to be jumped on pretty quickly, I guess, from an international.
It is. The caveat being, I think, within the United States, I think we have a more accurate picture of what is happening within our press and our media. And I think as you go outside our borders and go into other areas, some of that information is filtered or altered, like the old telephone game. You know, you pass it down to the next person, and the information gets changed. And Ashley, I'll give you props for this. Since you're not, we can't put you on the spot yet, but in the social media world that we live in, there's a lot of social misinformation is really what they're calling it, because things just Facebook, whatever the source, people are grabbing hold of things, and it's just spreading like wildfire. And so I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is trying to get ahead of some of the misinformation.
Right.
Yeah, I read the other day where Corona beer sales are down because people thinks it comes from drinking Corona beer.
I got a good deal on a 12-pack, Ashton, I can tell you that. So.
As long as you add lime,
But
you're fine.
The key to prevention is education, if I'm understanding what y'all are saying.
And wash your hands.
Absolutely. Yeah, wash your hands.
And don't let Larry sneeze on you.
Stay away from Larry.
Right. All right. Well, is there anything further from the board? Thank you very much for coming out here this evening. We really appreciate y'all's time and efforts and energy. Thank you.
Anytime at all. Thank you.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right, and I think we'll take a brief 5-minute recess before we jump into Logan's exciting report this evening. All right, call the meeting back into order. We'll have a little break there. Next up, item C on our agenda for administrative reports is IT Department, Mr. Logan Stees. It's looking sharp this evening. Good to see you, sir.
I don't think I ever saw you.
I'm here.
All right.
So I'm here to give a little update on the completion of the computer deployment project. The scope of the project was to upgrade and replace every computer in the county that was not already operating off of Windows 10. We upgraded 39 computers and we replaced roughly about 370 of them. So the challenges of this project, the major one was time. You know, we were on a strict deadline of January 14th. The computers started coming in first week of December, and we knew that January 14th was going to be a little pressed, but you know, we shot for the end of January and we made it. The next challenge was the extensive software catalog that the county has. Outside of the core software that each department uses, they have a bunch that we had to hunt down and call, you know, the vendors, try and figure out how to operate and actually get back on these computers. The most important challenge to me, if you ask me, is maintaining the same level of quality of service, you know, and technical support to the county as we do. I like to hold my department up to high standards, and I had some concerns that with so much going on that, you know, troubleshooting tickets and whatnot would kind of slack off. Luckily, we found a way to get around that, and it didn't slack off, and we were able to, you know, achieve and fix everything. So this pie chart is a little breakdown of all the different categories that, you know, we assisted people with. In that month and a half, 2-month time span, we closed 380 tickets between 2 people. It's a lot. So the last challenge that we faced was space. As you'll see in the next coming slides, there was a lot of boxes and a lot of equipment we had to find what to do with. Luckily, we had a room down the hall. So this first slide, you can see these 6 pallets. These are only the desktops. Funny story about this is, you know, I was unloading the first pallet, as you can see up there, and I came back down, and the delivery man had dropped off 5 more pallets. That was a nice thing to walk out to. So this is the room I was talking about. All the desktops, you know, stacked up in that room. First picture on your left is one of the walls in the surplus room. You know, you can barely get in there anymore. It's just lined with equipment that we're about to surplus. And lastly, you know, there's a clean room that's empty.
Does the fire marshal know about that room there? In the
It's empty, if you go
Okay.
look at it.
all the old stuff's said.
So, projects moving forward, it was a busy month for us, but it's going to be a busy month every month. This month, we have a big infrastructure upgrade for the bandwidth. We're going to increase it 10 times. The ball's already rolling. We're just waiting on the legal work on the service provider side. In March, the first week of March, we're going to have the National Guard come in and do a security assessment for 5 days. They'll be in the conference room for 8 hours each day, and they're just going to be, looking for known vulnerabilities within the network. That way we can patch and remediate them. Lastly, this is kind of like an everyday thing for us. Security is very big, but we will be deploying various security protocols to allow the hardening of our infrastructure in place. Y'all have any questions?
Yes. So I've been getting a number of kickback emails lately.
Okay.
And it's just to the board members. I've replied to them and had several of them get kickback, and we just heard from the Albemarle Regional Health Group that they had submitted some stuff and it got kicked back. So do we have a file size issue? Is Kevin not cleaning out his emails?
It's Kevin.
It's Kevin. Okay.
Blame it on me.
Yes.
I deleted all my emails.
Yeah, I mean, will these upgrades take care of all those issues?
So that's actually a separate issue.
Right.
Along, this big computer deployment project, we actually had a bunch of smaller projects going on. So we actually migrated our spam filter for the email off-site, and it is hardened. Now, I will say in your case that, emails are getting blocked, but when people call in, we're able to figure out what rule is triggering them and bypass that so, next time it won't happen. So if you forward me that email,
Be happy to.
I will take care of that.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
If I can, just one quick announcement from my end. Logan, when he was originally hired, was our IT coordinator. Officially, as of Saturday, he became our IT director, and so he got a
Thank
promotion.
you.
So.
Read that on Facebook, his announcement, and my heart dropped there for a second.
I thought he'd left.
Yeah. we had 20 phone calls into HR the day that the job posted, wanting to know if Logan was leaving. So,
Yeah, no,
but
I'm here
he's
to
officially
stay.
our IT director. We're really proud to have him here. He's doing a great job, and look forward to his continued success with Currituck.
I think that's your fault.
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
It is.
Good
All
job,
right.
Logan.
All right.
Well, if y'all
Thank
need
you, Logan.
anything, you know how to get a hold of me.
Glad my pacemaker worked well when I read it.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Logan. Appreciate it. All right. Next order of business is public hearings. Item A, consideration of action in PB 90-07, Pine Island Phase 5. Request for a preliminary plat use permit for a 23-lot plan unit development on Audubon Drive, tax map 128, parcel 2H, Poplar Branch Beach Township. And Miss Jenny is up this evening, I believe. Good evening, how are you?
We need to
I think we need to swear in anybody who's going to offer testimony.
Thank you. That's what happens when you get here late. You don't write this stuff down. All right. Anyone that's involved in this needs to come up and be sworn in this evening. You all would put your left hand on the Bible and right in the air. Thank you. Do you all solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing short of the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good
All right.
evening.
Thank you.
So I'm Jenny Turner. I work as a planner in the planning department. And before you tonight is a request pertaining to the Pine Island Plan Unit Development in Corolla. The applicant is Turnpike Properties, and they're requesting preliminary plat use permit approval for a 23-lot residential subdivision on the undeveloped Phase 5B. The subject property is located, it's approximately 25 acres. It's adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean, just south of the Hampton Inn property in Corolla. The property is zoned SFO, single-family, Outer Banks residential with plan unit development overlay. In September 2019, the board approved an amended sketch plan use permit for the Pine Island PUD to allow Phase 5B to be developed as 23 single-family dwelling lots on condition that the minimum side setbacks be 15 feet. So as I mentioned, the property to the north is the Hampton Inn. All of the surrounding property is zoned SFO with PUD overlay and subject to the approved amended sketch plan for Pine Island. To the south is a strip of existing open space. You can barely see it there between the blue line and the yellow. And then residential homes exist to the south. And then to the west is the Pine Island airstrip. And you should have a copy of this plan in your agenda packet too, but this is the preliminary plat, sheet 3, that shows the overall development. Again, it's 25.15 acres. They're proposing 7.01 acres of open space. That amounts to 27.9% of the subject parcel as open space. This development and all of Pine Island PUD meets the open space requirements for Pine Island PUD. The amended sketch plan requires 35%, and they have provided 37% open space in Pine Island as a whole.
Mr. Turner, as we got this up, is there another walkover that I'm not seeing, or is it just the one at the northern end?
There's one at the northern end as well as the southern end.
There's one at the southern end? Okay, it just wasn't showing up quite.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Hit it.
Thank you. It wasn't quite showing up on here.
So the project consists of 13 oceanfront lots, and they range in size from approximately 3/4 of an acre to right at an acre. And then there are 10 semi-oceanfront lots. They're a little bit smaller, and they range in size from, they're all about a half acre. They range from 0.45 to 0.58 acres. Community water access is proposed in the open space to the north and the south. And the north side also has the cabana, parking, and the cluster mailbox units. They are proposing pedestrian connections. There's a sidewalk that connects to the existing path along NC 12, as well as within the subdivision to connect the lots to the north cabana, as well as the southern access. The project will be served by county water and private wastewater from Pine Island Currituck LLC. Those commitments are in your agenda packet. They are proposing private gated streets at each entrance, and a bridge crossing is proposed over the existing stormwater pond to connect the existing access on the north end of the property. That access, if you ride into the Hampton Inn property, you can see where it street stub dead ends into this property. Canopy street trees will be planted according to the ordinance requirements. The existing state stormwater plan will be amended to accommodate this development, and stormwater will be managed on-site through expansion of the existing pond and conveyance via roadside swales and lot line swales. The applicant will pay a fee in lieu of recreation and park area dedication, and that will be paid at final plat. Again, there was a condition of approval on the amended sketch plan that there would be minimum 15-foot side setbacks. Staff's understanding of that was that that would be for principal structures. So it would be good if the board would clarify that tonight, if it's approved. And then also,
could you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
So a condition of approval when the amended sketch plan was approved back in September was that there would be 15-foot side setbacks on each lot.
And that would be for principal structures.
And that was what staff believed that the intent was, but I mean, a lot of times you have accessory structures that are closer, like a pool deck or something like that. We just wanted clarification on that.
Okay.
And then also, you mentioned the walkways. The board may want to consider the timing of the construction of the cabana and the walkways. So the Technical Review Committee recommends adoption of the use permit subject to the following conditions of approval: that the application complies with all applicable review standards of the ordinance, that the applicant demonstrates the proposed use will meet the use permit review standards of the ordinance, and the conditions of approval necessary to ensure compliance with the review standards of the UDO and to prevent or minimize adverse effects of the development application on surrounding lands include that side setbacks shall be a minimum of 15 feet for principal structures, and a fee in lieu is required and shall be paid prior to final plat. So moving into the use permit review standards. A use permit shall be approved on a finding that the applicant demonstrates the proposed use will not endanger the public health or safety, not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands, and will be in harmony with the area in which it's located. It will conform to the land use plan and other adopted county plans, and will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. And typically, staff takes responsibility for those last two findings. So for the land use plan consistency, the land use plan classifies the site as full service in the Corolla sub-area. And the proposed use is in conformance with land use plan policies regarding housing and neighborhood. Policy HN1, that Currituck County shall encourage development to occur at densities appropriate for the location. And policy HN3, that Currituck County shall especially encourage open space developments that cluster homes on less land, preserving permanently dedicated open space, and often employ on-site or community sewage treatment. And regarding adequate public facilities, staff's suggested finding is that the proposed use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. Wastewater and water capacity are available, and on-site stormwater management is proposed to address additional runoff. And that concludes my part.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Turner? All right. Thank you, Jay. At this time, I will invite the applicant to come up, or applicant's representative. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Strader. I'm an engineer with Quibble & Associates, a civil engineer of record for the preliminary plat submitted before you this evening. Given the staff analysis and all the information included within the agenda package, I didn't think it would be appropriate for me to continue with a lengthy presentation, but please know that the applicant and myself are available to answer any questions or concerns as they come up before you go into deliberation.
Okay. Well, I think one of those concerns was brought up by the staff was the side setback for principal structures. Are you guys intending to have 15-foot setback from the?
Yes, sir. We agreed to that at the use permit and sketch plan.
Mr. Chairman, part of the reasoning for that 15-foot setback, though, was for public safety.
Right.
And I think we lose that by. Do you have an issue with it just being a 15-foot setback?
So it's all about public safety. So what I would like to say is, while we're meeting the North Carolina Fire Code, I mean, really that additional 15-foot setback wasn't really necessary, but we've agreed to it for the principal structures, and we're not opposed to doing so. But there's other things. I think staff is picking up. We didn't make this request. Staff is picking up on the fact that there are many accessory structures, even trellises or pool decks or fences. There's all sorts of things that are allowed to encroach into a setback to some extent, but there's still going to be a setback from the property lines, without a doubt. I think the clarification was just to recognize that the increased setback, the 15-foot, applied to the principal use and wouldn't pigeonhole everything within that 15-foot setback.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'm very confident that the concerns voiced by Corolla Fire and Chief Melton and the gang has long been that the setback from a public safety perspective is something that they would like to see. They're very concerned about the close proximity of very large houses.
Right.
And granted, there may be a trellis, but it's not hard for that, fire to spread from a structure to a trellis that's in closer, and I think it kind of defeats. I mean, you're not going to go from house to house per se, but that was one of the concerns that we had listened to in the Fire EMS Advisory Board on multiple occasions.
Okay. Ms. Turner, was your concern for anything in that 15-foot setback or principal structures? Would that be a bigger?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I think what staff is asking is just simply for clarification from the board. We're not advocating one or the other. We're just saying that going forward from an enforcement standpoint, we need to know, is it just principal structures or is it anything?
Okay. Okay, so, Commissioner Beaumont, you would like to see nothing inside that 15-foot setback, is that
correct?
Correct.
And that's, again, at the request of the Fire EMS Advisory Board, specifically driven by Corolla Fire.
Question to that. What if those accessory uses are back behind the houses toward the dune line?
I was thinking the same thing.
That's, yeah. So that ostensibly personnel could access between the homes without being impeded until they got to the rear of the
Yeah,
house.
but keep in mind, on several of those when I say attacking the fire, they're coming from the ocean side. That's the most, I mean, that is a huge water supply. And it's not a guarantee. There's trees and there's shrubs that are planted in between structures all the time, and it's not a guarantee. But that is one of the gravest concerns and Pine Island knows it. We had our closest, near miss in Pine Island, and it went from house to house, and it could have been very, very bad.
Okay.
And it's not a guarantee, and they understand that, but it just gives them more room to work.
Okay. So, if we imposed a 15-foot side setback between the houses for principal structures and allowed you to have fence encroachment on the rearward side or the ocean side of the house, would that throw you guys for a big curveball in your design plans at this point? Typical where the pools are located, hot tubs,
A little
that sort of
bit.
thing.
We're not opposed to being sure that the site plans are going to be favorable for public safety, but that's going to be 30 feet between everything, and what the setback encroachments in the UDO allow for are up to 5 feet for permeable surfaces, up to 3 feet for impermeable surfaces. So, I mean, I would think that would still be allowed for these accessory uses.
Yeah, I think we're talking more like fences, swimming pools,
cabanas,
I
right?
mean,
Things that
fire
are
code is going to preclude us from being able to put structures with any height, like a trellis, but so high, close enough to the property line where it's going to communicate with another structure. So fire code's not going to allow us to encroach that much.
Houses in Pine Island were 20 feet apart.
Right. So now we're getting 30.
We're getting, I mean, one way of looking at it is we're only getting an extra 10.
Right.
And the wrong wind is going to be a bad news story.
Okay. One of the other things the staff mentioned was phasing the amenities, particularly the gazebo and the walkway. Do you have an idea when those would be brought into?
The idea is that the project in its entirety would be at least capable of being constructed all at once, and meaning all the infrastructure to support any given lot. But we don't want to be locked in to not being able to come in with the entrance road and head off in one direction or the other. I mean, we would be able to still provide all of our required fire turnarounds. For instance, I could see ways of splitting this. The layout lends itself to being able to be phased.
I think what I got out of them was they really just, I think we want to see the walkways get built early on, not later on. Is that?
I'm Rolf Blizzard here on behalf of Turnpike Properties. Our plans would be to build the northern amenity for sure at the start of the development. The plans for the southern amenity is just going to be a walkway without, it's not going to be an improved walkway.
Right, you need a, it's not, so you're just going to do a sand?
Yeah, it would not be an improved walkway. The cabana would obviously be built at the beginning. As far as the phasing of the entire development, we would try to keep everything compact in one end. So we're not going to have a situation where we develop, say, Lot 1 and Lot 15. We would stay in the front part of that. So for that, though, we would need the cabana area because that's a critical element or amenity for the ocean view lots, not the oceanfront lots. So our plans would be to build that cabana area and the cluster boxes at the beginning of the development.
Okay, okay. The southern walkway access, would you guys be agreeable to putting something down there, either gravel or some other surface to walk? Have you ever tried to walk that far dragging your stuff in the sand?
Yeah, what we've tried to do is something that would be as little improvement as possible and with as much buffering as possible to address the concerns of our northern neighbors in Pine Island.
So,
at the end of the southern portion of Pine Island.
So would gravel be an issue, do you think? I mean, it's not.
What we have heard in the community meetings was a voice within the southern adjoiners that they wanted to preserve as many of the buffers as possible, basically create as natural a pathway to those as possible. We're trying to be sensitive to that.
I get that, but that can be achieved through vegetation, could it not?
We're going to try to preserve that vegetation.
Right. So if you got a sand trace through there, if there's some gravel down or something, I get that they don't want that there, but I'm also thinking bigger picture for the consumer.
It needs to work.
It needs to work. It needs to be functional.
Whatever we would do there would have to have a CAMA permit, so we would do
whatever's allowable then. Yeah. Okay.
But the idea is for most of the activity to be pushed towards the northern end, but these southern lots, we didn't want them to have to walk all the way to the northern end if we had to. The only thing I would like to add too, back on the discussion about the side setbacks, I do think the fire marshal was one of the TRC commenters on this. Did it go through? Fire code official did go through this and didn't express any concern, as I recall, in the comments, for what it's worth.
Okay.
And do you know who the fire code marshal is? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know who the
He's our
individual.
chief building inspector.
Okay.
So he's not a professional firefighter, but he's. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicants?
Just one thing. I agree with you. I think if you all can look at, I mean, I get it sensitive to the neighbors to the south, but I think if you're dragging, Lord knows, we've heard of, if you're trying to drag all the gear that is associated with going to the beach across sand, you're going to have a miserable group of folks.
Okay. Well, we've got two models. We obviously were the developers for Pine Island, so we could look at what we did in Pine Island. We also developed the Sanderling community, and they've got a very low impact, passive pathway.
I'm sure there's something you guys could find to help this situation out to improve the sand trace.
Rather than reenact the tan death march every weekend.
Just to remind the board, if you want to specifically require something, though, as you get into motions, it's got to be a condition.
I've got it written down here, so thank you. Okay. Anything else you guys would like to add this evening? All right. Did you bring anybody with you to talk about the impacts, like expert witnesses or anything like that, to help us make our findings of fact this evening? Okay. All right. Well, short move. I will open the floor for public comments. First up is Daniel. Thank you. Your handwriting is about like mine. So.
First of all, thank you for let me be here. I appreciate it. I happen to be one of the northernmost neighbors on the southern.
I need your name for the record, please,
Sorry.
and address. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Placha. P
Okay.
as in person, L-A-C-H-A. The C is silent. And I have a property, 299 Longfellow Cove, or also known as Pine Island 170, which is the oceanfront property on the southernmost part of this development.
Okay.
A lot of discussion about this walkway on the southernmost end of this development. And one of the things that was noted to make sure that it would not injure the value of adjacent properties. Well, in my opinion, I believe it will, because...
I have to kind of stop you there.
What's that?
Your opinion, if you're not an expert, can't be, so, but please continue, but just, you know, your opinions, if you're not an expert, can't, yeah.
I'm sorry. Just as a point of note, where my property is a cul-de-sac right there. And there is also a beach access in that cul-de-sac, which is 2 lots down from my current lot. So you can see that there would be a beach access here, 2 lots down, and another beach access right on the other side of my property. What I'd like to do, if I could, is talk about relief possible of moving that beach access in between the properties, maybe further to the north, possibly 2 or 3 lots up to the north, to allow for at least spreading out of all those influx of people coming down to the beach.
Okay. Yep, feel free. That's fine. That's
that is what I came down here for.
Okay.
I mean, I've been a property owner here since 2002. Love the place. Enjoy the place, and will continue to do so. But
okay. So the walkway that's a couple lots south of you, is that like a hardened structure, a wooden
that's
type?
a hardened wooden structure.
Okay. And does that interfere in any way, do you think, with the guest access, or is it, would it be more of an amenity to your guests that are staying in the
neighborhood? It would be
neighborhood?
probably more of a menace to the guests staying at our property.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to add this evening?
That's all I have.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. And so the applicant doesn't have an expert to address the value concern with them tonight for the adjacent
That's
properties?
what they said.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you.
Are you asking for an expert?
So typically, when these come through, we see that you have an expert witness with you to say that this property will not harm the adjoining property values, such as this walkover structure, and you need to qualify that individual through this process. Yeah.
Indeed, Mr. Chairman, the general statutes require that there be expert testimony as to the issue of whether the application will affect the value of adjacent property.
That's one of the things I was going to get to. So as it stands right now, we would have a hard time approving this subdivision. And that's within our purview to table this and allow you time to bring an expert forward and leave this item open, I believe. Is it not?
Yes, that is one of the options available to the board.
We had these same findings of fact.
Well, this is a special use permit. This is
totally different.
This is a little different. So we're sitting as a quasi-judicial board. That's why that gentleman's testimony or his feelings can't be taken into consideration. It is an expert witness's opinion,
Right.
and they're qualified.
I was just saying that this layout, this plan, hasn't changed from what has been seen on previous public hearings and findings of fact. So I was just wondering why.
Well, it's a little different tonight because you're asking for a use permit. So we've changed up a little bit. And before it was allowing you guys to get to this point.
We have the use permit.
You have a use permit. So this is a recording of the plat?
We're coming for the preliminary plat.
Is that jobbing?
Is that?
So to amend the sketch plan, the master plan, they did have to go through the use permit process.
Mm-hmm.
To amend that, the sketch plan. So that use permit was amended showing this layout. Now, that was amending, like I said, the plan unit development Pine Island master plan sketch plan.
Okay.
Because those were issued through the use permit, and so now they're coming back to you for the preliminary plat use permit to actually be able to subdivide the property. You went in, you amended the sketch plan
Right.
through a use permit process, and now they're bringing the preliminary plat back to actually be able to subdivide, to go through the process to install the infrastructure in order to subdivide the property.
Okay, now I'm confused. So I'm going to look to the county attorney and.
Well, it is a use permit issue, and so you, pursuant to the ordinance, you must make the 4 findings of fact.
Right.
And based upon the evidence presented to you in order to approve. Despite the fact that it may be an amendment, it still has to go through the same process as the original approval.
So the best course of action tonight then would, it's up to the board's decision.
Here's the problem. If someone were to contest this, you could get it, end up in court litigated. We didn't have appropriate devices in front of us to make this finding tonight. So it's more about protecting you and the county in the end.
I understand, and let me just say the one thing, but I understand between that point and this point, things can't change. That's probably why we've taken that position, but it would have behooved us to have known that that is a potential concern at that initial.
Well, and that's probably something we can work on, but most applicants, when we get to this level, know what they need to have with them when they come in, and that is one of the areas. So, would you get...
And the other thing, Mr. Chairman, relative to Mr. Plott, this goes both ways, right? So if you had an expert witness and said, and it doesn't matter what the issue before the county is, and we've literally had approvals or disapprovals get overturned because of expert witness wasn't qualified to make the comments that they made that were the basis for decisions that we made. So this isn't just for them to, you know, and there may or may not be an adverse impact to your property, but it's the same advice.
So the board, if I'm hearing this correct, the board would appreciate an expert testimony from, I'll say, a property appraiser?
Basic appraiser, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we understand.
Yep.
And keep in mind, it has to be for every one of these. You have to have, you got to provide an expert witness for these, not just this is one item.
Can I ask a question about that?
Please.
I am kind of new to this, so I will definitely plead ignorance. Some of these findings are findings I think that your county staff have to make as far as adequacy of public health and safety, adequacy of facilities, those type things.
The biggest one for us, I think, is that you have an appraiser come in and say, you're not going to harm the guy next to you.
Okay.
That's the biggest one. The rest of them, we can mostly make those findings.
What the statute requires is that there must be expert testimony. You may not rely upon lay testimony to make a finding as to whether the use will injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area. In addition, if there is some issue where someone is raising a traffic issue, the statute also requires that you must rely upon expert testimony as to whether there will be a traffic impact due to this application being approved. Now, as to number 3, the use will be in conformity with the land use plan. That is certainly something that you may rely upon other evidence. That doesn't require an expert, and typically you hear from planning staff that points out to you whether the land use plan supports or does not support the application. And then lastly, whether the use will exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. You typically, and it's appropriate that you would rely upon someone other than an expert, and that is staff generally given to you that testimony and evidence that supports a finding in favor or against.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing then? As far as the wastewater facilities, that's actually not a county facility. That's our facility, and he is our engineer for that facility. So he would be our expert witness.
I think also you have evidence that's been submitted in writing from the wastewater facility.
Yeah, you've got that covered.
Says they have capacity.
It's really just the joint abutting properties. While I have you guys up here, and he was talking about that walkway, I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of vegetative plan or something to separate the new phase from the old phase, or
Correct.
right? So someone staying in that cul-de-sac wouldn't know to walk through to the adjoining cul-de-sac to access the beach access on that end. They ostensibly wouldn't even know it's there.
Correct. I mean,
correct?
the hope is that we can preserve as much vegetation out there as possible.
Right.
And then the idea is it is a gated community, so it would be kind of self-contained and enclosed to just these 23 lots.
Okay.
It would not be part of the Pine Island Property Owners Association.
And would that gate, is that an unmanned gate, just kind of automatic, you pull up, or have a car key or
automatic,
something?
be automatic gate.
Okay. And the same thing going over towards the Hampton end?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that would be open. Okay. So at this time, I think I'd move to table this. And I will not be at our next meeting. Does this require board?
It does not.
Okay. So would 2 weeks from now be okay with you guys?
I might need to move that along.
Okay.
But,
and with all due respect, I sincerely apologize for not having that handled ahead of time. I think every one of us was thinking that this gated community, Pine Island Limited, would have done anything but decrease surrounding property.
And I don't think we believe that either, that it doesn't do anything but complement the surrounding properties, but we need an expert there. This is more about the litigious society we live in. And in my short 3 years here, the motions that we have gotten to make used to be, okay, let's do it, and now it's on to, some of them are 2 and 3 pages long. So, like I said, this is more about protection for you and us, ultimately, and the neighbors adjoining if it was something else going in there. So, you know, you would much rather hear this in 2 weeks.
If not 2 weeks, can we roll to the following?
Mr. Chairman, why don't we go ahead and go a month out?
Go a month out?
Second month,
okay.
second meeting in March.
I don't want to trip you guys, hold you guys up any longer than we have to.
We've been riding this horse since June.
All right, so 16th, so we'll hear this again on the 16th, and it'll really just be more of your expert witness at that time.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
thank you very much for your understanding, I appreciate it.
Do it, motion.
So I made a motion to move that to the
Second.
16th. Thank you. Any discussion?
In fact, Mr. Chairman, if I might say, if you make the motion to continue the public hearing.
Continue the public hearing.
To March
Leave it open.
16th, because you're gonna receive additional testimony.
Okay, so would you withdraw that? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to continue the public hearing so that we may receive
I'll
more
second.
information. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. All right, what do I do with my paper? All right, next item, consideration and action PB 15-10, the landing, request for an amended preliminary plat use permit to correct a computation error in the open space acreage, secondary conservation area, and the lot area of a proposed 29-lot conservation subdivision located off Baxter Lane, tax map 14, parcel 4, Mayock Township. And with that, I will invite anyone that's going to be involved in this to come up and be sworn in, please. All right. You both solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Donna Volva, I believe you're our presenter
Thank
this
you,
evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Donna Volva, Assistant Planning Director. The request before you tonight is an amendment to the approved preliminary plat and use permit for the landing. The landing is a 29-lot residential conservation subdivision. This amendment specifically is to correct the computation error in the open space in the lot area. Property is located at the end of Baxter Lane and also Little Acorn Trail in Moyock. The property shown in blue, outlined in blue, contains about 120.66 acres. That's the total tract of the property. The total development site is intended to be 72.66 acres and is basically the southern half of the property. The access for the development will be provided off of Little Acorn Trail. Property itself is zoned agricultural. To the north is zoned agricultural and consists of farmland and woodland. Property to the south is low-density residential that's zoned single-family mainland. The property to the east is bordered by single-family mainland zone property as well as the Shingle Landing Creek. Property to the west is zoned single-family mainland and also conditional single-family mainland and consists of low-density residential land uses. The 29-lot conservation subdivision was approved by the board on August 15, 2016. A 2-year extension was granted to the applicant to extend the preliminary plat. That approval was given on September 4, 2018, and will expire August 15, 2020, if a final plat is not submitted before then. Located immediately to the south of this property is the proposed planned county park. It's just across the creek area. The amendment is also subject to the original requirements that were presented with the application in 2015-2016. The application was received in 2015 and ultimately acted on in 2016. The proposed lots will connect to county water and will have individual on-site septic systems. The roads are proposed inside of a 50-foot right-of-way where they will have open roadside ditch swales. The applicant will be responsible for making the connection to Little Acorn Trail. An extension will be made up to the Baxter Lane Road, but will not connect the two roads together. The adjacent landowners, that road is private, and they had indicated during the original hearing that they did not want to make that connection. So the road will be extended up to that property line, but not extend all the way through. The stormwater for the proposed development will consist of roadside and lot line swales that will connect ultimately and dissipate out through the stormwater pond and the wetlands. Since the 2016 approval of the preliminary plat, there have been several new subdivisions that have implemented some upstream drainage improvements and also have built out. And all of that stormwater flow travels through this property and out to Shingle Landing Creek. And there have been numerous storm events that have created some maintenance deficiencies in that area, possibly some trees that are across the low area or the creek that leads out to Shingle Landing. And leaves, limbs, that type of thing have created some drainage impediments to the outlet that may have reduced the stormwater flows to the Shingle Landing Creek. I'm just saying that so the board is aware of these issues, and we will be working with the applicant during the construction phase process to hopefully improve those issues. The engineer identified the computation error on the open space, secondary conservation, and the lot area during the submission of the construction drawings. That difference is 0.81 acre. That original 2016 approved plan showed the proposed lot area to be 26.25 acres. However, when you actually calculated out each individual lot, it was 27.06, and that cover sheet is where that computation error actually occurred. There was no change at all in the layout of the lots, no change at all in the layout of the open space. It was completely a computation error. Open space provided on that 2016 plan was 43.39 acres, and actually, when you added all of it up, it was 42.58 acres, which is the reason why this is before you tonight, because on the surface, what it appears is there is actually a reduction in open space, which requires the board approval. But when you add everything up, there was really no change.
Ms. Fall, before
Yes.
you jump into that, have you talked to the applicant at all about the drainage issues? Are they willing to?
We
make
discussed
improvements?
that during the TRC review with the construction drawings, and I will let the applicant speak to what they are proposing to do to address those issues.
Okay, thank you.
The TRC recommended adoption of this use permit and preliminary plat amendment, subject to the same conditions that were imposed in the 2016 approval. There are no changes in that as well, and that's that the recreation and park area dedication or the payment in lieu of that dedication be resolved to the county's satisfaction. There is on the plan an easement area that is identified. Let me go back to that and I can show you what they are proposing to do. There is an easement located, or if you don't mind, can you point that out on the southern end? An easement proposed along, whoops. Down right there, that goes out to the creek. Yes. That's a 20-foot easement to the creek for an elevated boardwalk should the county wish to seek that easement. Also, they are willing to provide a 300 square foot area along the creek if the county was interested in that. That could be deeded, although that transfer has not occurred yet. If they are interested, they will deed that area for a potential camping platform. As you may know, this area is just south of where the camping platforms were recently constructed. Community water access shall be provided, including an elevated boardwalk and kayak launch adjacent to Shingle Landing Creek. That is shown on the preliminary plat with an elevated boardwalk and a kayak launch. However, during the construction drawing review, there is an area currently unimproved, somewhat improved, somewhat unimproved. There is a boardwalk that goes down probably to about 20 feet from the water's edge, and then it goes right out to the water. It's a pretty hard surfaced area. They'd like to maintain that. We are saying that that should be a constructed kayak launch so that all people, including any of those that may be ADA, have any ADA issues, that they would be able to access that as well. The preliminary, the recorded exempt plat shall be recorded. That actually identifies that 72.66 acre tract. That has not been done yet. I did skip over one. The paved walking trails and connection to the existing sidewalks are required. They are showing those on there, on the plan. However, anything that's located within the riparian buffer will need to be a boardwalk. The access streets shall meet NCDOT construction standards. They are required to do that and will do that. And soil engineering for the footers of the homes will be required as determined by the soil map, and they are well aware of that too. As you know, the 4 use permit standards, the board must find or make a finding on each one of these before approving a use permit. The applicant will make the presentation on the first 2. Planning staff will be responsible for the land use plan presentation as well as the adequate public facilities presentation. The land use plan, 2006 land use plan, indicates most of this property is rural. There is a small section near Shingle Landing Creek that is considered conservation. It is located in the Moyock sub-area, and it is in keeping with the policies in the plan that are identified as Policy HN1, which encourages development at densities that are appropriate for the location. Policy HN3, which encourages 2 forms of residential development, each with an objective of avoiding traditional urban or suburban sprawl. The one in particular for this one is open space type development where you cluster the development to a particular area and preserve the permanently dedicated open space. Also ES2, where your non-coastal wetlands are conserved for the important role that they play in the environment. The Moyock Small Area Plan indicates this property where the majority of the development's occurring as limited service. The rest and the remaining area is conservation. The proposed development has a 0.4 unit per acre and is in keeping with the plans and policies of the Moyock Small Area Plan, specifically FLU1, which promotes compatibility between the new and existing developments, and CC1, which encourages and fosters development that's compatible with the rural atmosphere, transitional areas, and a small town Main Street feel. They're more on the rural atmosphere portion of that, and is consistent with the vision, policies, and future land use map of the plan. So the adequate public facilities section, the plan will not exceed the county's adequate public facilities, including the schools, fire, rescue, law enforcement, and other county facilities. And those findings include the fact that this preliminary plat and use permit were approved by the board on August 15th, 2016, and that the board also approved a 2-year extension of the preliminary plat use permit September 4th, 2018, and that is still a valid permit and will expire August 15th, 2020 if a final plat's not recorded. The preliminary plat use permit includes 29 residential lots. There's no change in that, no increase in the number of residential lots as shown on the approved preliminary plat. And the proposed amendment will correct a computation error on the unexpired preliminary plat. Based on the 2004 student generation rates that were prepared by Tischler and Associates, this subdivision will generate 7 elementary students, 2 middle school students, and 4 high school students. At the time of the original approval, which was August 15th, 2016, the preliminary plat use permit, the 7 elementary students, 2 middle school students, and the 4 high school students generated from this development did not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. This project cannot go forward and be constructed unless this computation error is corrected. There are conditions on the use permit that hold them to a minimum size or a size specific, as well as the open space and the lot areas. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Doesn't look like it. Thank you. All right, this time I'll invite the applicant up or their representative.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is David Klevitz. I'm a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina and have been working for Bissell Professional Group for over 15 years. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner and the applicant, Jamie Jarvis and Catherine Thrasher, who were not able to make it. You know, Donna did a really great explanation of the project and what the amendment is. Just real quick, I've written down here that the requested amendment is merely a formality to correct a tabulation error found on the cover sheet of the approved preliminary plat. If you actually dive into the preliminary plat and start adding up all the lot areas and the right-of-way areas and the open space areas individually, you will come up with a different area, and those areas are consistent with what is currently proposed and shown on the construction drawings that we have submitted for approval. The difference in the tabulated area on the cover sheet and the actual areas within the plat are 0.8 of an acre. I'd like to also point out that the corrected total open space area still exceeds the required 50% minimum by 6.25 acres. So we're talking about 0.8 of an acre here But relative to, you know, what's required, we're still providing 6.25 acres over the minimum that's required by the county. I'd like to point out that, you know, this project has been submitted for construction approval. That's when we found out about this error. Unfortunately, we're not able to move forward with addressing the we did go to TRC, but we cannot finalize the construction approval until this amendment occurs. Based on the fact that we have submitted this for construction approval, we have obtained the state stormwater permit for this project, the erosion control permit, the water line permit, all DOT approvals, and a CAMA permit. All of those are in place for this project. The client is you know, interested in getting this construction approval finalized. We submitted the construction application back on September 26th of 2019, so it's been 4.5 months since we submitted for construction approval, and we're here tonight to talk about you know, correcting this error.
Okay.
You know, beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have for me.
Probably the biggest one is the one that was brought up about drainage, which is an always hot topic in Mayock.
The hot topic. It was discussed at the TRC meeting. You know, there was some discussion in going back and reviewing the TRC comments and responses that were provided at the original preliminary plat stage. Cleaning of the sloughs, maintenance of the sloughs was brought up at that time. And after reading through all the correspondence at that time, it was our understanding that it was agreed upon that that wasn't going to be required. We moved forward with that understanding on the construction drawing, so it's not actually, at least currently, it's not called for on the construction drawings. We went back and forth with staff at the TRC for the construction drawings, and we have not finalized, you know, a solution to that. But I have spoken with the owner, and I think that they are willing to do that if they have to do that. This is a situation where, you know, this isn't just a small ditch that's serving a few lots. This slough does serve a significant area of Currituck County, of Moyock specifically. And one of the concerns that the owner had was, you know, why do I individually have to be responsible for doing all of this when it helps so many people? And I understand that. You know, the only thing that I can say is this may be an opportunity where, should a stormwater district ever be formed in Moyock, this would be an opportunity where, you know, some cost sharing and responsibility through, you know, the actual process of cleaning out a major drainage way is put on the district as opposed to one individual property owner. But that's just, you know, an initial response to that.
So almost every development that we've had come in here now has agreed to clean out anything that touched their property, to be part of the bigger picture, good steward, good neighbor, etc.
Right.
You know, I guess the bigger question is not knowing that area specifically and how big of a project it is for you guys to clean out. Are we talking about snagging and clearing? If it's just that, it's probably not that big a deal.
Right.
You know.
I understand.
What's that? Right, Eric. I'm going to ask our county engineer, who is familiar with every ditch in this county.
Mr. Weatherly should be sworn if you're going to
swear you in,
consider
Eric.
his testimony.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Weatherly, talk about drainage for us. I know you love it.
Yes. Yes, I have been the one persuading the engineers that it needs to be done. It is a clear and snag project.
Okay.
So we're not asking them to widen the ditch or grade it or dig it out. It's primarily a clear and snag project, but there is quite a bit back there, and it's going to be difficult to get to, so it needs to be done, but it's a clear and snag project.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was my biggest thing, is what level we asking of them, and the financial burden that would place on them.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, Mr. Weatherly? Do you anticipate in the future, if stormwater improvements are made, that this ditch will be widened? Based on your experience?
Yes. I can't put the math behind that, but I do know the drainage area. I know the site. Well, I don't know that for a fact, because we have walked that ditch, and it gets pretty big in some places, especially down near North River as it dumps out. It's a significant drainage way. So maybe at the first part where it first leaves Baxter Lane may need some widening, but I think the end of it's pretty significant size.
Well, do we have the buffer space there that if it needs to be widened, that space is there, or will they need to reconfigure that area?
We have the easements. The developer's putting the easement on there to... So we require the easements as part of this development project. That would be a 25-foot easement on one side for this size ditch.
In this particular application, the drainage way is through existing wetlands, which is what makes it kind of difficult to get into. But as it relates to an easement, what we and those wetlands are being designated as open space areas. And what we generally do, and what we have been doing on most all of our subdivision plats, is all open space areas being dedicated as an easement for stormwater maintenance. And so we're not proposing a limited easement here. We're just proposing, I don't know, an 8-acre easement or something like that,
right,
whatever that open space area entails.
Okay.
Any work in that wetland areas would require a CAMA permit?
Not a CAMA permit. I don't believe CAMA does not have jurisdiction over those wetlands. They have stated that. If it's clearing and snagging, it is my understanding that that is strictly maintenance, and that the Army Corps of Engineers will allow that without a permit. Anything that requires excavation,
A piece of machinery.
yeah, excavation beyond what the original cross-section of the drainage way, any widening, expansion, deepening, that does require a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, because it is a permanent impact to the wetlands.
The reason I ask that is, what if we get down the road and construction gets into it, and now suddenly you need a Army Corps permit and you can't get one? What does that do to the approval of the development?
I think that all we are looking to require is just clearing and snagging. So requirements that we have would be, as just stated, maintenance, and wouldn't require a Corps permit.
I just want to make sure we cover all bases so we don't catch somebody short.
And Mr. Weatherly, so if that takes place, you feel confident that would increase the drainage through there better for the surrounding areas?
A few other bottlenecks.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything further from the board? Okay. So clearing and snagging. Sounds like we're at that point. You think that's something that you guys would be comfortable with taking care of?
I think so.
Mostly comfortable with, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that for what it's worth, again, I just want to reiterate, I think that they just wanted to have this opportunity to explain, why am I the one that's being forced alone to clean out this slough that helps serve a very large area of Currituck? And I understand why. I understand the process and that's been required of everyone else. Just this opportunity, so.
Well, the good news is if we get a stormwater district down there in the future, that'll be taken off of the homeowners that are in there.
Right.
So, or added to them, I guess. But anyway, okay. Anything further for applicant? Okay, thank you much. Appreciate it. All right, this time I'll open public comment. And we have, get my glasses on for this one. David Klebitz? That's you. Okay, that was you. About Matt Kohler. I have nothing. Okay. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak on this issue tonight? Please come on up, sir. I'll get the front first, and I'll call you up in a minute, sir.
My name is George Turner.
He should also be sworn if you intend to.
Yeah, we have to. Anyone that's going to speak to this needs to be sworn in. So if you wanted to come up in the back. You got one more coming behind you. Thank you. Do you both solemnly swear that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Do.
Thank you. And if you would, sir, we need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is George Michael Turner. I live at 324 Baxter Lane. I'm the end house. I also own the house straight across on lots 11 and 12. We purchased not too long ago. We got a problem. Our road is what they're going to try to tie into, and it's a private road, and it's a really poor road to begin with. It doesn't meet any state standards at all. I want to know, the question is, how are they going to keep the traffic off of my road? That's question number one. Question number two, back in the back on lots 11 and 12, according to the plat that we saw downstairs yesterday, the people are going to come right up to my fence line. Well, I have a road behind my house. It's been there for 40 years. All of a sudden, there's no road. What happened to my road?
I'm familiar with your address. I know where you're at on the.
Okay, I've got the picture. I got the plat, sir. Number three is they're putting a 4-acre pond on the backside of that property, which comes within 30 feet of my property line. What kind of drainage am I going to have when they do that? They're filling in a drainage ditch now that's there to bring this other stuff up. What's going to happen when they fill that in and I start getting flooded? That's it, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ask you one question. When you go down Baxter Road and you get to the end where the little cul-de-sac is, where it's gravel, you take
Yes,
a
sir.
right to go down towards your property. Correct?
Yes, sir. If you would.
Are you all the way?
Would you like?
No, I'm familiar with it, but when you
Okay.
take that little right to go all the way back to Baxter.
Right, we're on the dirt road.
Last house on the right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we own the house on right across the street.
Right across, okay.
Yeah, that's 11 and 12. That's the one that's really the problem. My daughter is going to be moving into it. We're getting it fixed up. And when we saw that plat, you know, we got that big pond. The other thing is not being able to have road traffic on our road. It's not a road, really. It's just a path. Between the mailbox, it's only 11 feet.
Miss LaCicero, or I guess maybe should be to Donna, the road, it cuts where he's talking about. I mean, is their property, I know I was looking at, is there going to be another road?
Yes, they're putting it in. It's going to connect those last two properties that, right there. Those
It
two.
is Baxter Lane. It's going to essentially connect to it, but there is going to be some type of barricade to there. But it is going to come up and be aligned with the Baxter Lane extension is what we call it.
I got you.
There is going to be, see, that's not, it doesn't show it on the plat that I could find. Maybe I missed it.
It's going to be aligned.
Yeah, you can see it extending off.
They're not going to be able to travel from one to the other, but they will align. Do you know?
There'll be a road barrier.
Yeah, there will be a type of barrier there. Correct.
They can't get to our road because it won't support it.
Put a barrier, she said, there, so they won't be able to cross.
Okay.
We're gonna cut down his road.
And if-
It is very narrow.
If the
Yeah.
board wanted to
It's
specify
11
in a
feet,
condition the
mailbox to
type of
mailbox.
barrier, that'd be,
That alignment is going to provide road frontage for these two lots in the Landing subdivision. These two lots right here, and that alignment there, but right here, and there's a very small little black line, but that is going to be some type of barricade between the new lane and the existing Baxter lane.
Okay.
That should take care of your concern there on
Although, he's like you said, the one part of the road, I guess his question was about the pond kind of in his backyard.
Yeah, the pond on lots 11 and 12 on my side, it's 30 feet, and there's a road there supposedly, or been there for 40 years, and a drainage ditch. They're filling in the drainage ditch and taking the road and bringing it up to my property line. How can they take my road?
Do you own the road?
It's on the map, yes, sir. It's there. There's no property been sold back there that we know of. What happened? Where did it go to?
I'm familiar where yours is as far as that. I don't know.
It's right across the street. We don't have it on the right-hand side going in. It's all on the left-hand side. Yeah, the road comes in on, let's see, lot 16 and 15, and it's only 10 foot, but it's an access going back, and then it makes the turn going down. And it's been there forever, and then all of a sudden, it's not there.
Well, it looks like they've got ditches and culverts proposed in the Baxter Lane extension that they're proposing that will drain back into this pond. They're catching the stuff coming down Baxter Lane and diverting it into a culvert pipe or something.
Yeah, that's our culvert pipe.
And then
we put
they're
that in
proposing
last
to
year.
keep that and have it divert into the pond that they're proposing to build.
Well, the drainage,
When you bear down that right, and I know where Johnny's house is. Johnny's is on the left, and you go down there to the right. You're the last house on the right, but you own that lot,
On
kind
the-
of catty corner on the left.
yeah. Well, actually, it's two lots, 11 and 12.
And the road that you're discussing is on the back side of that, correct?
Right. It's there. It's on the plot. It's on the deed, or what we had done. And then all of a sudden, it's gone. They're building right up to my fence.
Are you saying that the road itself is gone?
Yeah. They took it. If you look at the thing, it's not there.
On the plat or
Yeah,
physically?
right there. It's not there.
On the plat?
Yeah, the one that you're looking at, it's not there. And it's there.
When you say road, are you
Right
talking
there.
about Baxter or are you talking about a driveway?
Talking about the east, sir. 20 years ago, they had the right way.
I'll have to hold you off on that just a
Okay,
minute. So.
he's right. It's a right away from 20 years ago to where they come up behind the fence, and it was for the farmers to do. But it was there. It's been there. And then all of a sudden it's gone. Where'd it go to?
Okay.
Who was the easement granted by?
I have no idea. It's been there. We've been there 40 years, and it was there before we were there.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, if you all have questions about that, I'd probably ask the applicant or the representative of the applicant. to come up and
I think,
address
yeah, we'll get the applicant back up here. He's digging through maps right behind you, so,
Okay.
and plans, so, was there anything further that you wanted to add or
No,
add?
sir, that's it.
Okay, thank you very
Right,
much. I
thank you.
appreciate it. Did you want to come back up and address some of this before we bring someone else up, or have any thoughts on it?
Well, I think the first section was already addressed. We are not proposing a physical connection to the Baxter Lane extension. In fact, on our construction drawings, what we are trying to do and hoping to do are leave the existing buffer vegetation that's already there. There is a requirement for us to connect the water line that is being installed to an existing water line that runs along the Baxter Lane extension. Beyond the work needed to interconnect those two water lines, that's the only thing that's being proposed to possibly cross that property line. We're trying to leave it as a natural buffer as much as possible to make it evident that people can't keep going.
So where Baxter Lane is, the proposed little stub, I guess, for you guys coming off a little acorn, you're going to put some kind of impediment there, whether it's a guardrail or something to that effect?
There already is an existing vegetation there.
Okay.
And we're proposing to leave that there.
Okay. And was I correct in my statement that you were going to have these culverts catch this water coming down? So it looks like where that you're showing some kind of impediment in the road there. Reroute existing ditch and slope, a new section of Baxter Lane to the east. So you're planning on catching the water that was of concern,
right,
and routing it into your pond.
Actually, what we're proposing to do is maintain the existing ditch that's already there, and allow it to continue to connect into the wetland area as it currently does.
Okay.
We're not proposing to run that ditch into our stormwater pond.
Okay. So you won't be blocking anyone's existing ditches other than the ones that are on your property that were annotated? Okay.
And as far as this existing road, and this is, I'm not aware of it. This isn't something that that I'm aware of. We've worked with this boundary for, I don't know, going on 4 years now. We've not made any changes to the boundary as illustrated in these drawings. This has been through 2 public hearings in the past, and I'm not aware of an easement that exists for an existing road that we are getting rid of.
Okay.
We're not proposing to do that.
Okay.
So
Thank you
that's
for
all I
clarifying.
can say today about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'll
Quick,
go ahead, sir.
excuse me, before you leave, you'd mentioned you had to make a water connection.
Correct.
Do you anticipate any heavy equipment or machinery coming down that 11-foot wide road, or are you going to be coming in from the one side only?
No, I mean, they would hopefully come from our side.
Okay.
I mean, we have not,
No.
part of getting the state approvals for this is getting permission from anybody that's, associated with the construction of the project. And we have not obtained approvals from anybody in this subdivision to enter onto their property, so.
Okay. All right, come on back up. You need to come back up to the mic, please. Hopefully one more time.
When he talked about the plumbing, hooking it up, everybody down there is for that. There will not be a problem with that. We are the end of the line, and it is the worst water in Currituck. If they can get in there and connect us and make it a circle, all of our people would be very, very happy. That would be one of the best things that could happen to us. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Come on up. If you would, please state your name and address for the record for us.
My name's Johnny Moretz, and it's an honor to be before you. My concern is they're saying they're going to bypass this pond and lead this ditch, which is a dead-end ditch at both ends, okay? It doesn't go from, I'm not computer smart, but I can't get there, but, yeah, there, I come, well, it's too complicated. I got early old timers, but that's a dead end ditch. Okay, where this detention pond, what I want to know the definition in a pond and a lake, acreage-wise, start with, because from what I gather, it's 5 acres. That's bigger than a pond, in my opinion. And I have some pictures here. This fetch and throw thing in this swamp, that is not gonna work. I have pictures from the 7th. Let me divide them and pass. Y'all can go through them real quick. This is very important because these are all the new homes that Mr. Turner was talking about, the old easement. The Acorn Trail, which is Little Air, I believe, was the original easement, and reason they did that easement was because when the Jarvis's the grandfather passed away, they got bigger equipment. It couldn't come through my driveway anymore because it's way too big, and they had the right of way to come through to their property through my driveway, which their equipment is so big now, and made roads through Little Era and Acorn, which the new trail or their right of way to get to this development. In the process, they developed that. So this is where it gets confusion with this path and this pond. What is the sea level right now? And what they gonna do with the dirt from this pond? Where's the dirt going? Are they gonna raise the elevation and flooding my piece of property out? Or what?
They're not supposed to do that.
Well, that's my big,
That's
that's
point.
the only concern
They
I
have-
got. And if you step in my yard, it's no, they gotta do something with the dirt. So my common sense is telling me that they don't put it in their fields to build that land up. So my water, the way it is now, it's like this, but it's gonna flip the table and it's gonna be like that on me.
Well, they're
and that is my front yard that's underwater, and that pipe there is our road pipe. If you notice, that whole road, that's from the beginning to the end, every one of them pipes are underwater, except the pipe at our road that we just put in a year or two ago because the other one collapsed. It cost $9,000. We went through the county and DOT. It was up to us homeowners to put the pipe in. We did it. And what was the other question? The widening of that ditch is definitely necessary. If you look at the culverts with the other projects on the other side of the road, you can see the stagnant water that's there in every storm. I've been there over 30 years, and just the 7th was the picture of this flood, this past 7th. And that's the only time I ever seen it like that was back when I first moved there. It was Hurricane Gloria, and the water come over the road. And now, every rain from this new development, which we can't stop, and it's got to be a solution for this water. But this pick and pull ain't gonna work. It's not. It's no way, because they just logged that swamp, and all the debris is laying in that swamp. It take them. You'd have to hand pick this stuff.
Well, that's what we're talking about. We do snagging and clearing pretty routinely, and that's what this is.
It'd take them a year to do that.
Right, well,
and a lot of manpower. They don't have to dig.
Okay. Well, to answer your question, when they dig these ponds and they do this stormwater plan, the engineers get together and they create a stormwater plan to deal with drainage and to catch it, and they are supposed to hold it on site and release it at a very slow rate.
Okay.
To not affect downstream properties. In this case, it would be flowing out, obviously, out through the swamp
Towards
back
the
there.
swamp. I
Right.
understand that, and that sounds great. But the problem is you see the picture, the width of that ditch. With the additional, and they're talking about more houses in April to come through on that same road, which they're steady building now on the opposite side, which is gonna come up to that field that you see all the water in with the two wooded lots, where you see all that water. Well, houses will be up to that wood line. They're steady building to there, so naturally they don't have to cut back to the big ditch, which that's the main. Actually, that ditch is part of Moyock Creek. It makes a big circle, and that is the smallest part of Moyock Creek. And my other question with this pond or lake, are they gonna put riffraff and silk fence to hold the riffraff, or it's gonna be just dug and it can corrode and spread and maybe have a blowout, or?
Well, I don't know, that's up to them and their engineers, how they design their.
Well, that's a big question for our neighborhood, because it'll put us on the water.
Well, they have, the Army Corps of Engineers, I believe, gets involved at this level, do they not? Let's get to a Corps permit.
And they also have their state stormwater permit that they have to contain the water on site and release it downstream at a certain rate.
And it will be designed and engineered to do its job. Right. And as we've learned,
so
the county have to say yes.
So at this point, that decision hasn't been made, correct?
It basically has. All we're here tonight, this subdivision has been approved.
Oh yeah, that's something I looked at
we're just
too,
fixing a
sir.
map, really,
This
and a
is-
couple numbers on a map.
I only got a letter 2 weeks ago. I never knew this back 2 years ago when they wanted to come through the neighborhood. It was dismissed, and I'd never heard another thing about it until 2 weeks ago. I got a letter in the mail, 500 feet of your house, and it's done been passed and everything. I was never notified.
It was further than that.
I mean, it was like
15
waking up and here's, you know, in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get the newspaper and don't watch TV or meetings and what have you, so I was unaware.
Well, it's been 2015, I believe you said this was originally?
Yeah.
So it's
and that's
been
sad
4 years.
in my behalf, I'll be honest with you, but when I learned what I learned, that's why I'm here, and I'm glad I took them pictures that rain day, and you know, I just wanted to speak my piece and be on record when I get flooded out. If it's not done right, I'm definitely gonna get flooded out.
I'm sure we'll hear from you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add this evening?
No, sir. I just hope people, engineers, do it right. And this pick and pull thing, really need to be somebody on top of that job.
Okay, well, that's what we got our engineer for.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like to back to John here.
Okay. I think you entered them, I think
Well,
those
if
are ours
he
now.
wants them to be considered as evidence, then they need to remain part of the record. If not, they could be.
Y'all can have.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep them in the file. Thank you.
Y'all have a nice evening.
Okay. All right. Where were we? Would anyone else like to speak on this tonight that didn't sign up for it? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. And any discussion from the board? Open floor for a motion if someone would like to make one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move for approval. Since this is more or less just a correction of a paperwork error, there's really nothing I think that we can do. I think the county attorney, is that, since they already got a vested right sketch
We
plan.
just need to add the extra conditions.
Well, I mean, it's an amendment, so it should be treated in the same manner as when it originally came before you for approval. So you would want to make the same findings of fact.
All right. Like I say, I'll make a motion for approval based on the following findings of fact and conditions. TRC conditions of approval be part of the approval. Use permit review standards worksheet. The use will not endanger the public health or safety. The use will adhere to county health and safety standards, including recommendations made by the Albemarle Regional Health Services. The project should not adversely affect the public health or safety. Number 2, the use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Land to the east and south have been developed into single-family homes. The developable portion of this tract will be developed similarly. Over 50% of the land will be preserved. Lot sizes are similar to those in adjacent subdivisions. Wetlands will be preserved. The use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the surrounding area. Number 3, the use will be in conformity with the land use plan and other officially adopted plans. The UDO indicates that a Type 2 conservation subdivision is allowed in the Ag zoning district with a use permit. The 2006 land use plan classifies this site as rural and conservation within the Moyoc sub-area. The proposed use is in keeping with the policies of the plan, some of which are Policy HN1, Currituck County shall encourage development to occur at densities appropriate for this location. Policy HN3, Currituck County shall especially encourage 2 forms of a residential development, each with the objective of avoiding traditional suburban sprawl. 1, open space developments that cluster homes on less land, preserving permanently dedicated open space and often employ on-site for community sewage treatment. Policy ES2, non-coastal wetlands, including freshwater, swamps, and inland non-tidal wetlands, shall be conserved for the stormwater runoff, recharging the groundwater table and providing critical habitat for many plant and animal species. The 2014 Moyoc Small Area Plan classifies this site as limited service and development and densities. Limited service and conservation. The policy emphasizes of this designation is more on residential development and density. Limited service designations provide for limited availability to infrastructure and services and low to moderate residential densities. This application is low density at 0.4 units per acre. The proposed use is in keeping with the policies of the plan, some of which are Policy FLU1, promote compatibility between new development and existing development to avoid adverse impacts to the existing community. Policy CC1, encourage and foster development that is compatible with rural atmosphere, traditional areas, and a small town Main Street feel consistent with the vision, policies, and future land use map of this area. Number 4, the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. The landing preliminary plat and use permit was approved by the Board of Commissioners on August the 15th, 2016. The Board of Commissioners approved a 2-year extension of the preliminary plat use permit September the 4th, 2018, and that will expire August the 15th, 2020. The preliminary plat use permit indicates 29 residential lots. There is no increase in the number of residential lots as shown on the approved preliminary plat. The proposed amendment will correct a computation error on an unexpired preliminary plat. Based on the 2004 student generation rates prepared by Tischler and Associates, the proposed subdivision is projected to generate 7 elementary students, 2 middle school students, and 4 high school students. At the time of this of the approved preliminary plat and use permit, August the 15th of 2016, the 7 elementary students, the 2 middle school students, and the 4 high school students generated from this development did not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. I'd like to also add at the engineer's agreement that a clearing and snagging be done on the area that it was mentioned in terms of opening up the drainage way.
Did you also say that you wanted to include the TRC conditions of approval?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, just one quick point of clarification from a staff standpoint. Are you asking the engineer right now to agree to that, or?
He already, I said
Gotcha.
as agreed.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. I'll take a brief recess at this time. All right, I'll call the meeting back into order. Next item on the agenda this evening, item C, consideration and action, PB 19-11, complete auto credit. Use permit revocation for automobile sales and rentals at 1383 Currituck Highway, tax map 23, parcel 10 in the Mayock Township. Mr. McCree,
We
this
don't
is...
have our... We're not recording, I don't think.
Do we have to swear everybody in and just treat it like a quasi-judicial?
Yes, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, so anyone that is going to testify or present evidence for the board's consideration should be sworn.
Okay. She all set now? All right. Thank you, sir. All right, I'll read that again. Item C, consideration and action, PB 1911, complete auto credit. Use permit revocation for automobile sales and rentals at 1383 Currituck Highway, tax map 23, parcel 10 in the Mayock Township. And is there anyone in the audience that's going to speak to this that's not up here tonight? Don't see anyone? Okay. If you would all place your left hand on the Bible. You all solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
It's the pictures.
All right. Ms. LaCicero, I believe we're up to you now.
Yes.
We've worked our way through the rest of the county staff.
To the rest of the staff, and you're down to me. I'm sorry.
All right. Always a pleasure.
The issues for 1383 Currituck Highway, the complete auto credit automobile sales use permit. This is an aerial photo of 1383 Currituck Highway, and it is zoned general business. The Board of Commissioners, the sitting board, approved a use permit for 1383 in June of last year, 2019, for automobile sales and rentals. And the conditions of the approval was the applicant shall have 90 days to complete having the building to commercial standards as required by the UDO and receive a certificate of occupancy. Another condition of approval was that improvements will be made to the parking and display areas in accordance with the approved site plan, that the landscaping will be upgraded, in accordance to with the Unified Development Ordinance, And the trees could be moved to keep the 25-foot area visibility for the line of sight between this property and its neighboring properties. And that would be measured from the curb. Another condition of approval was that the display areas would be screened with a type A buffer yard, and also keeping with that 25-foot setback line of sight, and that the outdoor storage of vehicles shall occur only within the approved display areas. Now, this was the approved use permit. These were the conditions of approval of the approved use permit. This is the approved site plan that went along with that use permit for 1383. The pink areas were areas of new gravel, which was going to be the parking for the customers. The yellow areas are the existing pavement, or these are going to be the display areas, some with new pavement and then some of the existing pavement, existing area. But this was the area designated in yellow were the only areas for display of the vehicles. The site plan also showed landscape buffering along this along the property lines, the northern property line and the southern property line, and along the fence line that separates the front part of the property with the rear of the property. So after the use permit was approved in June of 2019, we gave the applicant time to come into compliance with those conditions of approval. We inspected the property on October 15th, 2019. This is about 4 months after the use permit was approved, and they were non-compliant with their conditions of approval. We issued them notice of violations, and they had essentially 30 days to appeal those notice of violations to the Board of Adjustment. They did not appeal that to the Board of Adjustment, so we began the civil citation process with this, with them not being compliant with their conditions of approval. So on January 30th of this year, we did an inspection at 1383 Currituck Highway, and we found that they were compliant with some of their conditions of approval, but not all of them. The applicant did submit the Appendix B, which is the commercial, bringing your building to commercial standards, has met the building code requirements except for sign height for their ADA parking spot, which can be easily addressed. We also found that new paving area, new impervious surface has been installed, but the applicant did not apply for, nor did they receive a zoning permit for putting in new concrete. The landscaping has not been installed. The type A buffer yard has not been installed along the front along the display area, and outdoor storage of vehicles is actually occurring in areas that have not been designated for storing vehicles. You should only store the vehicles in the outdoor display areas. So these are the pictures of the property from January 30th, 2020. It appears as though cars that are parked along here are not customer parking, but they are actually a display of cars. There's vehicles being stored behind the fence and not in the display area. There's no landscaping along the fence line. More cars, vehicles that are being stored where they should not be in the display area. More pictures of cars, and you see the buses that are being stored in the back, not in the outdoor display area for car sales. There's no landscaping along the front, has not been installed. And this is the site. So because the conditions of approval have not been met and the notice of violations have not been appealed, that the staff is now recommending that the use permit, because the use permit be revoked because the use permit conditions of approval have not been met. We have our code enforcement officer here. If you have any questions, she's the one. I visited the site today. There's no landscaping installed. and there are still items being stored outside of the display area. There's still the vehicles that are being stored behind the fence. But no storage of vehicles should be taking place anywhere on the property except in the display area. So
Do you know what, how much, what the accrual is at this point for the fine?
I do not. Rachel may know.
Mike?
I don't have the number off the top of my head either. I don't
Okay.
know.
But we've got, since October, daily fines, is that correct?
Since November 15th was when we
November.
started the civil citations.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Cicero? So you said that they had completed some of the improvements in November, is that correct?
They have met the building code for the building as far as converting it back to a commercial building. When I spoke with the building inspector, the only thing that was non-compliance is the sign height for the ADA parking spot. And that's minor and can be adjusted.
Yeah, that's easy.
So that's essentially the only condition of approval that they've met. The landscaping has not been installed. Any of the landscaping as far as along the property lines and the fence lines, the type A buffer yard between the display area and the right-of-way has not been installed, and there's still vehicles being stored in areas other than the outdoor display areas.
So when the county staff went in there in November, mid-November, had they made any effort on the interior of the building to bring the building into compliance, or was it us showing up that kicked us into gear? Do you know the answer to that? Come on up. If you would just stand back, I'll call you up in a minute, sir.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm the Currituck County Code Enforcement Officer. I can't answer that question. That question would be nothing was done until we issued the notice of violation. He then came in to our office and inquired on what he needed to do, and we explained to him then.
Okay. So he acquired what needed to be done after the violations?
Yes.
Okay.
Huh?
Do you know what date it was that he came in?
No, I don't have that written down. I know he came in once. I wasn't in the office. He spoke with Jason, I believe. And then he came back into the office and spoke with Jason and I that day. I don't have a date of that.
In your packet, there are a series of an email chain between one of our building inspectors and Mr. Cizano, and the date of those were Friday, November 8th, 2019 was the day that one of our building inspectors I responded to, I think a visit from Mr. Cizano.
I saw those. Catch the dates in them. Okay. All right, so it looks like in pretty short order then he did in fact get the building, with the exception of the sign. Was the paving okay after we went out and looked at it, for the concrete area that he improved?
He still has yet to submit the zoning compliance permit. Last I checked through the permits, nothing has been submitted for that.
Okay.
And because he didn't submit a site plan along with that, we're not exactly sure if he is in the right-of-way, is there room for any of the required plantings of the type A buffer between the display area and the right-of-way line.
Okay.
So we concrete without a permit?
Yes.
Didn't we do one? Oh, sorry.
No, it's just, so we don't know, then they hadn't been inspected for the right of way.
But didn't we do on the one thing on the, because the neighbor, I remember, the attorney next door, Mr. Ennis, had asked about the
site
plantings or so, which that was put in the back.
Yeah,
part
they
of the
did,
buffer.
they wanted to make sure that the sign was moved back, if memory
So, yeah,
serves.
that- yeah, that and the trees
so
or
that you
wherever they
could
were
see out, and some of the
Yeah.
trees not quite encroach as far.
But none of that's been planted. The sign's been moved, but nothing's planted.
Nothing's planted.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to answer your question about the amount of civil citations, $1,700 in civil citations have been issued to date. They are due and owed the county. The permit holder has not made any attempt to pay the civil citations as required by the ordinance.
Okay. And that will continue to accrue because they're still in violation with the parking area, with the plantings. If we were to allow this to continue, it would continue daily
Yes.
until he came into compliance. Okay.
We had 90 days.
Which was a date that he gave us. Okay. More questions for the staff? No. Thank you. Okay. I'll invite the applicant up this time to tell us, plead your case, and please give us your name and address for the record, sir.
Mark Cicino, 1383 Currituck Highway, Moyock, North Carolina. Oh, no, 1709 Stone Church Mews, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay, thank you. So, tell us why you didn't bother, you set the date for 90 days for us to allow you to open this business, and we actually extended that time prior to that because you'd come in and said that you had a death in the family or a friend or something like that and hadn't completed it, and we gave you some more time.
What I focused on was the paving, which was the most expensive, and the construction inside to bring it up to commercial code and ADA compliant, which has been done. The Appendix B has all been done. The point where I'm at right now, I have corrected the storage of vehicles. I was only able to bring in 5 copies, but you can see that's the parking lot today.
And looking at the pictures you brought us.
Yes.
They show violations of exactly what you've been cited for. Specifically,
There's a bush
where
in the backyard.
where you're supposed to have cars for customers to park. It looks like you have vehicles being stored there. And then your close-up of the chain link fence shows a bus behind the fence.
Yes, I was showing that I do have a bus, and I have pictures of that. That's stuck in the mud. I'm waiting for a wrecker to come pull it out.
Okay, but
The other buses and vehicles have been taken.
correct, but you're actually showing us in your photos that in fact document you're in violation.
Yes, compared to the photos that were taken, I have made a effort to comply with everything. I have one bus stuck in the back in the mud that I was not able to get out. I have a wrecker coming to pull that out.
So when did you take the buses out?
The buses came out last week, as far as in the rear of the storage. I ran into an issue November 5th. I fell sick. I was admitted to the hospital. From then to about mid-January, I was very ill. I'm working with my PC and a rheumatologist, sorting that out. I feel great now. They're still telling me that, hey, I got blood work that I need to deal with. I'm happy to provide documentation to that. I know I was behind on the paving. If you see, you can notice that there's concrete. I said when I first came in, I had a asphalt contractor ready to go. When it came time to doing the deal, his pricing went up significantly, and I was back at square one. I went with concrete. That is done.
Well, I wanted to ask you again about the buses. You say there was only one bus in the back that was waiting to be
Yes, ma'am.
pulled out.
Yes, ma'am.
Sunday when I went by, there was a bus sitting out front.
Yeah, I'm allowed to have a bus out front on the paved area, and that was removed. That I did remove out of there. I have storage in a separate area. for them. So if you went by there right now, there's one bus in the backyard.
Okay, so you just stated you were sick November?
November 5th, yes,
Okay, so prior to that, your 90 days would have been
was expired.
September, October, right. So you had 90 days to start on all this, and so nothing happened until...
Well, that's not accurate. The pavement,
But you had 90 days to get it all done.
yes, I was not able to complete it in the 90 days.
And was there a reason for that?
Time, money, life, unfortunately. The point I'm at now is landscaping and removing any vehicle.
Well, you're not there. You
close.
You have to have a survey done. I mean,
I don't need it. I don't
you
need a
concreted, yeah, to make sure you're not encroaching in the setback. You didn't have anyone permit and plan out where your concrete pad is. It was shown drawn on here, but you still have to show that it's not encroached in the DOT right of way, and that will allow for the plantings and the other things that go along with your landscaping plan. I mean, you're way off on this.
Then I was mistaken on that. As far as for the concrete, I didn't believe I needed anything additional. And ignorance is not an excuse, but everything is within what I promised to do. My only holdup right now is the landscaping, the zoning compliance permit. I can wrap this all up. As far as planting, I would like to the end of March.
You had, it looks like 30 cars or so on the lot. Where did they mysteriously go in a week? Did you sell that many cars in a week?
What do you?
I mean, from the pictures we have from the county staff when they came by there, and I've ridden by this property very recently, just like Commissioner Etheridge, and there were cars everywhere, buses in the back, buses on the side, and so where did you just have a huge sale of vehicles, or did you
buses?
run them
I have
on
off-site storage for.
Okay.
And then as far as cars, yes, it is tax time. That's why I had so many vehicles. I am selling vehicles, but I was also able to condense them and pack them onto the pavement area.
That piece of property, I drive by at least twice a day.
I drive by
And
8.
the reality is, county staff was getting fairly consistent. So what's going on with the auto sales place? Because nothing was going on at the auto sales place for months and months. I would get calls from people that expected progress to accomplish this, and the county can't, get out there and force you to start doing things. But clearly there was no, and I understand, right? Money, time, life, I get all that. But we didn't come to you and say, please open an auto sales place. You came to us and said, I want to do this, and we're in violation when you came forward.
I'm being told I was in violation, but if you remember, originally I came to planning first. I was giving a letter saying that I was zoned to open the dealership. And then after the fact, I was told that is rescinded. I wasn't zoned because the conditional use permit they based that on was expired. It was something that was on the property already. I never would have moved forward with a dealership until I's were dotted, T's were crossed, because you wouldn't have let me if that was handled properly at that point. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't open up and then say, "Oh, please forgive me."
Right. Which we took into consideration that
Yes.
that was a mistake on our part.
So
The concrete work was done without the appropriate permit.
and I can
agree. And we just lived an aspect of this in a neighborhood. Your concrete contractor also knew they needed a permit.
Okay.
I mean,
Very much so.
almost guarantee it.
Yeah, and
And as far as the landscaping, landscaping is not that expensive compared to concrete.
Correct.
Right? And you had all the fall that could have been done. And, it's been a mild winter, and I get it. Some people are saying wait till March, but that's not hard set. And, Mr. McCord's in the landscaping business. I used to be a certified arborist. I know perfectly well in this area you can plant year round.
Okay.
We're tempered enough that that's a problem. Now, when you were given the violations, you had an option to appeal those violations by going to the Board of Adjustments.
Yes.
Which you did not do.
Correct.
Now, I would advise you more time, because when the Board of Adjustments hears that, you know, you can plead that case. But your failure to respond to that.
That's when I fell ill. November 5th is when I was admitted to the hospital. I thought I did send an email correspondence. It turned out I didn't send it, and then my time was expired for the appeal to the Board of Adjustments. Now, as far as, you know, making it ADA compliant with the bathrooms, I had to do quite a bit of moving of drains and plumbing and different stuff there. I'll come down tomorrow and get things ironed out and try to figure out as far as the permit for the concrete, and make sure that we can either, you know, back up and punt, or if whatever I need to do to correct it, I'm willing to do.
What, Mr. Cicero, what exactly is necessary now that the concrete's already in place?
We would need essentially to find out exactly where the concrete is.
So a survey.
That would be best. A survey would be best.
Is there any concern over the depth of the concrete or the manner in which it was placed because of the
rebar put in there and
driving area? Would that be anything you guys are worried about?
We're not, but maybe the building inspectors would be.
Right.
Because I know before you pour concrete, they usually come in and they inspect it, how deep it is, what kind of base you have underneath it, and all that good
Compaction,
stuff
yeah.
before you pour concrete.
Well, the question is, does the pouring that concrete require a building permit?
It does require a zoning permit.
Zoning permit?
A zoning permit, correct. Because it is, you're adding impervious coverage, you're adding lot coverage, and we still have a setback for driveways and the like. So that would require at least a zoning permit.
But not a building permit?
But not a building permit.
But the zoning permit wasn't what we went through the first time, and I apologize, and that's where I'm confused.
No, what we went through the first time was the use permit and the site plan there, and I believe my staff did ask you to say that we would need a zoning permit and a site plan to address the landscaping that would be required with the use permit. So, if they didn't do it beforehand, I know they did it after October 15th, after the notice of violation went out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I would
on your
like
behalf?
to just please ask for a little bit of leniency. I know you've been very accommodating and willing to work with me. I can wrap this up and make this compliant if you can table it for a short period of time, and let's reconvene and let me show you that it's done.
Would you explain what a zoning permit's going to require?
A site plan, and a site plan showing where the concrete is, where you're going to be putting the type A buffer, some variety of landscaping material that you're going to be using, the area that whatever you're going to be planting along the fence line and the northern and the southern property lines.
Mm-hmm.
We need that site plan, and a zoning compliance permit actually doesn't cost anything. So you'd be able to come in and get that.
I was under the impression that I couldn't do that till all the other work was done.
That's
Yeah. I thought the zoning compliance permit was the last step of everything being done.
No, that would probably have been your first step. After the use permit, then the zoning compliance permit you should have applied for with your site plan.
Okay, and you know, it definitely falls on me, and it's my mistake, but I have been into the office several times. Again, yeah, it's definitely my fault.
Did you have something?
Ms.
you wanted to add?
Anderson has been here and spoken with Mr. Cicino about the zoning compliance permit that he needed.
So when he did come into my office, I did stress to him that that was probably the easiest thing to do. He could even take part of what he had for his site plan that he got approved for to help him, and that it was no cost.
And this would have been what time frame do you recall?
After he
After
probably
your-
got the first
after
civil
your intervention?
citation, I think he
Okay.
finally came into the office.
All right. Okay. Okay. Did you have anything further at this time?
No, sir, I'm just asking for a little bit of help here, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're the only one that signed up for the public comment phase, so I'm assuming you got your public comments out of the way.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any discussion from the board, or would anyone like to proffer a motion?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move to revoke BB 1911, complete auto credit use permit for automobile sales or rentals because the applicant has not met the conditions approved based upon the following findings. On June 17, 2019, the Board of Commissioners approved a use permit for automobile sales or rentals for 1383 Currituck Highway with the following conditions of approval. The applicant shall have 90 days to complete having the building to commercial standards as required by the UDO and receive a certificate of occupancy. 2, improvements will be made to the parking and display area in accordance with the approved site plan. 3, landscaping will be upgraded in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance. 4, trees can be moved to keep a 25-foot area of visibility for line of sight. The 25-foot sight line shall be measured from the existing curb. 5, display areas be screened with type A buffer yard, also keeping the 25-foot area of visibility. 6, outdoor storage of vehicles shall occur only within the approved display areas. On October 15th, 2019, staff inspected 1383 Currituck Highway for compliance with the conditions of approval and found those conditions have not been met by the applicant. On October 15, 2019, a notice of violation was issued for non-compliance with the use permit conditions of approval for the following deficiencies. Number 1, new paving for outdoor display areas have not been installed by the applicant, did not apply for or receive zoning permit for the minor site plan. 2, landscaping along the northern property line, fence line, or southern property line has not been installed. 3, a type A buffer yard has not been installed to screen the display areas. 4, vehicles are being stored outside the areas designated as display areas on the approved site plan. The deadline for appeal of notice of violation to the Board of Adjustments was November 14th, 2019, and the applicant did not submit an appeal to the civil citation, so the civil citations were issued. The property was re-inspected on January 30, 2020. Violations were found, and the revocation hearing was scheduled.
Sir, do we have a second? In discussion, Ms. LaCicero, if this passes this evening, what are the options for the applicant going forward in the future? So if this passes tonight and we pull his use permit, would he be eligible to come forward with her use permit in the future again, or is there a time period to come back in, or another applicant could come forward on this property? What exactly transpires?
Well, if you revoke this use permit, and use permits run with the property, then the process will have to start all over again for Mr. Cicino or any other applicant that wanted to do a used car, wanted to sell cars there.
Would there be a time frame on that?
I don't believe so, that we have a time frame on use permits.
So, in other words, if he went and fixed the property and brought it up to what it, and then reapplied, there is a potential for him to have this business here again in the future?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make that clear. Do we need to set a timeline for removal of vehicles from the property?
See, does he have any options after this?
In terms of appeal?
Yeah.
The only possibility of appeal would be to the Superior Court. It should be noted, however, having failed to appeal the notice of violation, he will not be able to really assert much, if any, defense. I mean, he's been deemed to have admitted by not appealing the notice of violation to the Board of Adjustment that he is indeed in violation.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion from the board? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. All right, next agenda item up this evening is item D, public hearing and consideration of resolution authorizing the sale of property to J.D. Love LLC, Brindley Beach, Lot 5 of Maple Commerce Park. Is that Mr. Stikelether?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The long-awaited arrival of Larry Lombardi at the podium is here to. Larry's going to go over the potential sale of this property in our Commerce Park. Obviously, it's very exciting to have another piece of property have interest from a business to locate there. So at that, I'll turn it over to Larry.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the members of the board. Before I go on, I just want to shout out to Miss Kitty being at the Pink Ribbon Resource Center. That's a new business here in the county, and that particular business is new, not to the county, not only to the county, but to the area, and the services and products and education that Kimberly Twine is offering. It's for ladies that have had breast cancer or been diagnosed, and it really is something that's needed in our area. So I just wanted to add to it, and thank you for that. Now, business's hand is Doug Brindley. His LLC is J.D. Love, and he's looking to build a laundry facility at the Maple Commerce Park, lot number 5. It's right on Terminal Road. It's the last one. If you get it, you're on the, I don't know, there's a map there. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Thank you. So that's right there, Terminal Road. And he's looking to do probably about an 8,000 square foot facility. There'll be 15 jobs involved with this facility, and the average wage is $14 an hour that he'll be paying the individuals that'll be working in this facility. So, and Doug Brindley has been in the business before. He used to have a laundry facility up in Corolla off of Corolla Village Road. And for a few years he was leasing elsewhere, but now it's gotten to the point where he needs to do his own facility. And so he is looking to come to the Maple Commerce Park. So my recommendation as the Economic Development Director is to take a look at the purchase and sales agreement and hope that you will approve it. It's being sold at the tax assessed value, which we would consider the fair market value. Any questions?
Can we get them to get one up by the road so everybody can see if something's going on at the Commerce Park?
Mr. Chairman, just a little bit more background. We've already started with the laundry facility, started some of the research into water and sewer implications and what all that means, just in case anybody had any questions about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Not at all. All right. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, I move for approval.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm sorry, you need to open a public hearing
Yep.
before considering a resolution.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I have no one signed up for public this evening. Would anyone like to speak to this agenda item tonight? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the sale.
Oh, Kevin, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. New business. Item A, recommendation of bid award to.
Before you move on, just one quick thing before Larry leaves, just so the board's aware, we have, Larry is taking on a slightly increased role in a formal capacity, working with small businesses as they come through the planning process. So we just heard somebody say that they had issues with that process, so forth and so on. But I do want to make the board aware that from now on, as it gets into pre-application meetings, Larry's going to be there to help guide a small business through that process and assist them through the entitlement, through the building process, inspections, and that kind of thing, just so that everybody's aware of that.
Great, thank you.
With that being said, he did help a realty company week before last with a sign question and walked them through that process on getting a good sign. So thank you, Larry, for that.
Yep. All right, call Larry.
Call him.
Thanks, Larry. All right, next item, recommendation of bid award for the ABC store in Crawl. Mr. Stikelether.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have the Assistant County Engineer, Michelle Perry, here if you have any specific questions. If you'll progress the slide. So this is a rendering of the ABC store that will be built in Corolla. We had bids come in for this project. It did come in under the budget. And as you see, the winning bidder was Godfrey Construction with a total bid of $1,761,430. There is a note at the bottom of that bid tab sheet. There was a calculation error on their part, but we did have language that allows the unit price to control, specifically on concrete. This is Godfrey Construction, LLC. We had 4 bidders, A.R. Chesson, Danco Builders, Godfrey Construction, and Sussex Development Corporation. And from a standpoint of a bidding process, this was a really good process. That we say the numbers were really tight. So they were the low bidder basically at $1.7 million. The high bidder was at $1.9 million. Okay. And so that gives us some pretty good confidence in the numbers that came in. Yeah.
Why is Sussex shaded also?
I don't know if they had a calculation error or not. We didn't get into that, and Ms. Hamby did not tell me. I don't know if... There you go. And just for a little bit of background, so the board's aware, this is going to go to our 10-acre site in Corolla. The ABC board has had a lot of input on the design of this facility. We've worked closely with their staff member to make sure that it's going to work for their purposes. If you can go to the next slide, I think there's one more. This is a close-up of the site plan. One of the reasons to do this is to facilitate the entrance and exits of tractor trailers so they can bring stock in more efficiently than they do. Right now they have to unload it off of a tractor trailer in Grandy, and actually staff has to transport it over.
They expect to see 2 tractor trailer loads a week.
Yeah, so we have a high volume in Corolla in the summertime.
Yeah.
Make sure it's getting there around noon on Saturday.
Yeah. Next slide, Laura. Okay, so
that's it.
So that's basically the project at this point. We're looking for the board to award the bid and grant me the authority to sign the contract once it's completed.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. Thank you. Item B, recommendation of bid award for Shingle Landing Park in Moyock. And again, we have Mr. Stikelether.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got a couple of people here to speak. We've got Eric Weatherly, County Engineer, who can speak to the bid, but more importantly...
Oh, man, the man's been waiting all night.
We have Jason Weeks, who put a tie on for us tonight.
Barely get to see him.
That's rough.
Jason is going to be here to speak to the amenities that will be included in the park. I just thought that you all as a board would like to know the final product that's going to come to fruition out there. So, Laurie, if you'll advance the slide.
Oh, nice power.
So construction award. Oh, go back one more. So yep. So low bidder here was A.R. Chesson at $2,513,020. They have built with us before. We recommend award to them. We did have 7 bids. The spread on this one was a little broader, probably because there's a lot of site work involved, and site work always has some level of variable to it. So next slide, please. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. As you advance through, I think we might have some closer ups of some of the area, but if you want to talk them through the amenities that this park's going to offer.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to come out tonight and walk you through the project that we were proposing to build. We are excited to have some pretty good bids. We had I think it was 7 bidders. So, you know, that was a pleasant surprise to see that turnout. But so what we're proposing to build in the Shingle Landing Park it was made obvious to, as it's well noted, that we went through a fairly lengthy public input process with this park, and we had there were some real concerns from the neighboring properties to keep things low key, you know, very passive, low noise levels, that type of thing. So that's why you'll see what you see in this park, and that's based off of the public feedback we got. But we have 4,000 linear feet, or a little over 4,000 linear feet of walking trail. That's 8-foot wide concrete walking trail. So just under a mile, but a very substantial walking area. There's a traditional playground, and that means when you think of a playground, you know, your slides, your colorful, you know, the playground like we have over at the ball fields and every park that you've been to, that playground, that's a traditional playground. It's more of it's an active, kids are on slides, tube slides, climbing apparatuses, all types of things. That's a traditional playground. We have one of those proposed. We also have what's really catching fire across the country. Is called a nature playground, and that's going back to the basics. When you're as old as I am, you know, we used to go out in the woods and play and things of that nature. So a nature playground is designed to spark a child's imagination. So it's trees, logs, rocks, frogs, animals, just sit very low level off the ground. In sand. There's no fancy surfacing required for it. That's kind of where we're going with a nature play area. There's also some mounds that are being incorporated into the site, which allows us to put a 0 fall level slide. So basically you'll have a mound of dirt built with the slide going through the dirt. So the kid climbs the dirt, gets in the slide. There's no fear of them falling. There's no safety surfaces required. It's something pretty. It's catching fire. It's coming our way. So we're trying to get ahead of the game. I don't know. I think Dowdy Park in Dare County has some of those features.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely our first dabble into that. We do have the most active recreational project piece of this project is the pickleball courts, which by now probably everybody's heard of. It's the fastest growing activity among senior citizens. We have 3 courts proposed. They're on the western side of the property, away from the adjacent houses. We also have a restroom facility and all the utilities and piping, pumping, all that stuff. It's actually an on-site wastewater system, I believe, is what we're building. So all of that goes with that. We have a picnic facility. You'll notice on the site plan, on the edges, there's a lot of reforestation that's going into this project. So we're trying to keep the effects to the neighbors at a minimum. And then there's also, what's pretty neat is we're having a pretty substantial pond that we're building, and over that pond there's going to be a boardwalk with a gazebo over the water, and that's a pretty neat feature for people who want to stop and eat lunch or just stop and rest and observe wildlife in the pond, fish, birds, and whatnot. So that's kind of thing. Of course, there's very large lawn areas for just open play, and it opens the door for future expansion or for community events that we can hold there and just get large crowds in at one time. So, and that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't think I left anything out. The playground surfacing, in case anybody's interested in it, it's going to range between sand on the low level, low fall zones. It's going to be some poured in place rubber, which is fully ADA compliant, fully accessible, every apparatus there. And there's also going to be some rubber mulch, which same type of system we have out by our soccer fields, if you guys have been to that playground. So it's going to incorporate all of those different surfaces amongst those 2 different play areas. So it's going to be a state-of-the-art play facility for those kids. And there's, Laura, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head how many homes there is within that short, between walking distance and biking distance. I mean, it's getting up there. It's probably knocking on 1,000 or 8 up in the upper hundreds, I would assume. I don't know. but it's a ton of people in a close proximity to this park, and we think it's going to be utilized pretty heavily.
Mr. Weeks, are there going to be any ADA, like we have up there, Barco, or Maple, excuse me, Maple on there, those swings and stuff like that, Freddie, or just, are we any plans for something like that? Or?
Some of the apparatuses are ADA compliant. A lot of the spinner types, the Liberty Swing, for instance, where the chair goes into it, that's not proposed at this time. But a lot of the apparatuses are accessible by chair. Yes.
And Jason, you were talking about the effects on the community, the houses around it. Like the pickleball courts, are you going to have lighting for nighttime play or not?
No, the only lighting proposed on the site is just the basic requirements that we have to meet for security lightings, security lighting for parking areas around the buildings and whatnot. So no sports lighting on site.
Good.
How many feet of walking trail did you say it was?
It's right at, give or take, 4,000 linear feet.
What would you say?
8 foot wide, concrete. Can I ride my bicycle? If I get on a bicycle, it's going to be ugly.
Kitty's riding her bicycle all the way from...
The bicycle might not like it. It's not designed to be bicycles. It's designed to be walking, jogging pathway. So, yeah, it's not designed for bicycles.
We need a skate park right in the middle of that.
Well, like I say, there's plenty of room for future expansion.
It looks like you guys did a great job. It looks like it's going to be... Yeah.
So we're looking tonight for the board to award the bid and to give approval to the manager to sign the contract, execute the contract.
I'll second.
Okay, so we got a so moved.
And a second.
And a second over there? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Just so the board knows, we're going to try to schedule a groundbreaking sometime in March. So it,
Shovels back.
yeah, this will be a little different because there will actually be the breaking of ground when we do a groundbreaking here.
Yes, sir.
One last question. Would this qualify for a Part-If grant down the road for additional facilities?
It could. We applied for a part-if grant on this to start with. It didn't. They didn't award it to us. But if we added facilities to this, it would be eligible for a part-if grant.
Yes, there'd be nothing on this site or in this project that would prohibit us applying for part-if.
I would urge that we go ahead and apply for something. If something comes up, then we can be ready.
Well, with part-if, you have to have the facilities identified before you apply. So the board would need to think through what kind of facility you wanted to add before we applied for part-if. But if that's something the board's interested in, it is good for Jason to know that, because you got to make sure your plans are updated and that kind of thing.
Well, it was mentioned here,
Pavilion for the
maybe a
band?
skate park.
Gonna have a pavilion out there for the band?
We have a couple of the future proposed facilities. One of them actually was a amphitheater, a shell
Nice.
for that, and a larger pavilion with restrooms that would be south of the pickleball area. So that is something that we've looked at and identified as a potential future project.
Great. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a lot of work.
Support.
The map that's up on the screen now is the map that Jason Weeks was referring to. Here's the park here in the middle of Moyock, and you see all the neighborhoods that this map was made in 2016, 2017. We went through this process, but you can see the pink were proposed developments, and now those are yellow. Now they are existing residential development with hidden oaks and windswept pines up here, and this is the landing that we were speaking of earlier tonight. But you can see how this park is centrally located in amongst a lot of our new development that's happening on the east side of 168 in Moyock.
The landing, will that have direct access into the park? So they don't have to come back on Baxter Lane and come out?
Right now, there is proposal to get a path in the park, at least to the property line of the landing. There's a ditch in between in between the park and the landing.
The county was given that easement, or proposed to be given that easement. We actually, in our plans, have allowed for a stub that comes into the park that would then cross the ditch, and they would have a pathway on their side, and those two would meet. So in theory, if that project passes and proceeds like we anticipate it, they would be joined by pathway.
Internal circulation would be the best key.
Yep.
And I'm going to give a little bit of kudos to the staff, Jason and Eric and Michelle, who are here, and their staff kind of behind them as well. That these are two big projects, 2 of 4 big projects that we're doing when you count the public safety and the Maritime Museum. And the fact that these 2 projects came in with bids under budget is a big deal, and came in a pretty timely fashion, I think. So we're excited and looking forward to. It's a lot of construction at one time, though, all 4 projects. So bear with us. It's going to be a wild year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Next item up, consideration of a grant agreement between Currituck County and the Corolla Wild Horse Fund. Mr. Steichleather, back to you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a grant agreement. The Corolla Wild Horse Fund, because of some of the requirements on local government, the Corolla Wild Horse Fund has some ways to engage contractors for the marine portion of the horse fence that would be much lengthier for us. They've got some contractors in mind who are prepared to, if they haven't already started the work. I haven't been out in the
Not
last.
yet. We got to get a favorable wind.
So they are, this is basically a grant agreement to allow them to construct the fence, reimbursable grant, so they're going to provide us the invoices, so we make sure that we're only covering the cost of the actual construction. And this would allow us to basically send funds to that nonprofit to handle part of the wild horse management plan that we are responsible for, which is the construction of a fence, not the maintenance, but the construction. So this is just one half of that project. The other half will be handled in-house. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions for Ben? I'll move to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item D, board appointments. Number 1, Fire and EMS Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that with the added fire districts in Corolla and Knott's Island, this board approved increasing the size of the FIAB to 7 members. 1 each would come from that fire district, so specifically Tim Bostaff for Corolla Fire and John Wonder from Knott's Island Fire District is who I'm nominating.
Thank you. I'll second that. Any discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 2, Historic Preservation Commission. Leanne, was this the one we were talking about earlier?
Sophie Jordan?
This is the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah, Sophie Jordan to replace Horace Bell.
Gotcha.
I'll move to put her on there.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And Moyoc Stormwater District. This is the one we were talking about earlier that was, we need to reappoint Charles Ely, Peggy Glusk, Wendy Shannon, and Ryan Hudgens. Is that correct? Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item E, consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'll recess the regular Board of Commissioner meeting and move us to a special meeting in the Tourism Development Authority.
Give me a second, Mr. Chairman. It's always a
gotta find
it's always a struggle to get down into the budget amendments. Would you all like for me to go through each of the budget amendments and then you all approve it as one big group, or would you like to do them one at a time?
All as a
How
group.
many was there again?
1, 2,
50,000 for the
3, 4, 5, 6, 6.
Go ahead and just run them down and we'll approve them as a slate.
All right. The first one is to move money for a change order for the camping platforms. There was additional cost incurred due to the to more boat at one site, and then additional trips were necessary due to low tide several days. The next budget amendment is to transfer promotion funds to capital outlay to purchase tents for tourism-sponsored events. These are new tents. Their tents are starting to get in kind of rough shape. The next is The internet costs at the visitor center, you heard Logan speak about that a little bit, but this is to improve some internet speed. The next is to increase appropriations for costs associated with beach parking permits. So essentially, we have to cover the cost of printing some of the permits, that kind of thing, for the beach parking. And then increase appropriations for maintenance of supplies at Wellhead Club and Historic Corolla Park. And the final one is a budget amendment that basically funds the grant that you all approved, $50,000, if it goes up to that amount, reimbursable to the Wild Horse Fund. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions? All right, move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. GS 143-318.11A3 in order to consult with the county attorney and preserve attorney-client privilege in the matter entitled 85 and Sunny LLC v. Currituck County and pursuant to GS 143-318.11A6 to discuss a personnel matter.
And what I had.
That was the second one was in there.
Okay, gotcha.
Personnel
You did.
matter.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right. We just can't keep it in here? Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.